Bang! There was a deafening clap. The scarlet longsword was busted up while Tianquan's body was shaken so strongly that he took a few steps backward. But the scarlet longsword didn't calm down at all and continued shooting up as if it was completely controlled by Jian Wushuang's consciousness. Bang! 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 Under Jian Wushuang's manipulation, the scarlet longsword began madly attacking Tianquan. Although Tianquan could withstand the attacks, he felt under great pressure. Stop! Blood Mountain! Tianquan suddenly shouted as his voice trailed off. Why? You want to give in? Jian Wushuang's eyes grew cold while the scarlet longsword combined by 36 Bloodsky swords was quietly hanging behind him, radiating an amazingly foul air. Give in? Ha! You don't deserve it. Tianquan sneered at him and continued. Today I've got other things to do, so I don't want to waste my time battling with you. Let's fix a date to have a final showdown. Shall we? Fix a date to have a final showdown? Jian Wushuang raised his brows as he sneered in his heart. Star Island was like a huge prison, where people was so dull that they seldom had other things to do. How could it possible for Tianquan to have other things to do on this dull island? He probably felt afraid of being defeated, so he planned to battle with Jian Wushuang next time. After all, he must have enough time to prepare this battle. For Jian Wushuang, it seemed that Tianquan probably had some unique ways to improve his strength. Jian Wushuang had seen through Tianquan, but he didn't lay bare the fact. You want to battle with me next time, don't you? Jian Wushuang looked at Tianquan with a sneer. Yes. Tianquan looked back to him while his voice was pretty cold. Of course, since it was battle, let's have it with a bet. I don't know whether you dare accept it. A bet? Jian Wushuang's smile grew wider. What would you like to bet with me? It's simple. The bet is the woman behind you and all the treasure on you. Tianquan's eyes were shone with a strange light. Eh? Jian Wushuang frowned and he couldn't help casting an eye on Linglong. He didn't any panic on Linglong's splendid face. She looked rather calm. When Jian Wushuang looked to her, he nodded softly to Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang immediately knew her with assurance. Everything was determined by strength on Star Island. If Jian Wushuang couldn't defeat Tianquan, Linglong fall into Tianquan's hands whether there was a battle. When? Jian Wushuang asked. In 3 days, Tianquan replied. Okay, deal. Jian Wushuang nodded. If you lose, you likewise have to give me all your treasure. Also, you must leave Star Island and wander about in Fog Sea. And you're not allowed to go back for 100,000 years. What? People around were all startled. Even Tianquan's face suddenly changed. Giving all his treasure was one thing, but leaving Star Island to wander in Fog Sea for 100,000 years was quite another. As was known to all, it was quite dangerous in Fog Sea that even Dao Master could hardly ignore those dangers. Jian Wushuang had just wandered in Fog Sea for several years, and he was so lucky at that time that he passed through all the dangers alone. But 100,000 years was so long that no one knew what would happen. Tianquan was powerful indeed, but if he gave all his treasure, it would be a dead end for him to wander in Fog Sea for 100,000 years. On what basis should I wander out of Star Island? That's not fair. Tianquan glared at Jian Wushuang. Because my treasure is worth more than 1 billion divine gems. Jian Wushuang's voice grew muffled. If your treasure is as valuable as mine, you don't have to leave here. 1 billion divine gems? People around became dizzy after hearing this. Tianquan was also startled by this. 1 billion divine gems was Amsat equivalent to all the assets of a Dao Master. How could it possible that Jian Wushuang's treasure was so valuable? Tianquan had been stuck on Star Island for more than millions of years, and the only chance that he could get divine gem was to rob others, and he often failed. So he had little treasure. He may have less than 100 million divine gems altogether, far less than 1/10 of Jian Wushuang's. In terms of such a huge disparity, it was reasonable that Jian Wushuang put forward such a request in the case of fairness. Okay, I agree. Tianquan nodded solemnly as his voice demonstrated some kind of craze. With a bet worthing 1 billion divine gems, the risk was worth taking for him. Besides, he was confident to his own strength. More importantly, the battle was fixed in 3 days. 3 days? Hump, 3 days is too much. I can achieve at a higher level with my secret skill in 2 days. My strength will improve significantly at that time. Except the monster who has passed through level 2. Who is my rival among the kings on Star Island? As for Blood Mountain, Hump, he has just come to Star Island for 2 years. How dare of him to battle with me? Tian Quan sneered while he stretched out his hand to make a bow with hands folded in front and said respectfully, Lord Spirit Sound, I have bet with Blood Mountain. Hope you can bear witness for us. After that, a seductive red figure appeared. That was Lord Spirit Sound. Lord Spirit Sound mastered the whole Star Island and she knew everything happened on Star Island. No problem. Lord Spirit Sound nodded. In 3 days you will duel based on the rules. After that, her figure disappeared again. An insidious smile grew on Tian Quan's face and he glanced at Jian Wushuang with a ferocious smile, turning away. It seemed that Tian Quan didn't know there was also an imperceptible smile on Jian Wushuang's face when Lord Spirit Sound agreed to witness their duel. After Tian Quan left, all people spread about. Jian Wushuang took Ling Long and headed inside of Star Island. Blood Mountain. Thanks a lot just now. Ling Long said gratefully. You're welcome. Jian Wushuang smiled, shaking his head. By the way, you're safe for the time being. If I fail in 3 days, I can't protect you anymore. You won't. Ling Long looked deeply to Jian Wushuang. It was not too long that she got to know about Jian Wushuang, but she was clearer about how unbelievable he was. Jian Wushuang was the one who could go so far with Divine Realm. It was very incredible. Watching Ling Long's eyes, Jian Wushuang gave a shrug and said, How did you manage over the past few years in Fog Sea? Have you met Zhou Zue? Jian Wushuang had a long talk with Ling Long. Ling Long had been struggling in Fog Sea for all these years. Her strength was quite good in the Eternal Realm, but being alone in the Fog Sea, the danger is everywhere. She was very vigilant but still almost killed many times. Luckily, Ling Long escaped death over and over again with her various skills. She came to Star Island at random. She had never seen Zhou Zue since the day they ran away separately. She had no trace of him. Our destiny is at the mercy of God. Only Zhou Zue himself can save his life. Nothing we can do. Jian Wushuang sighed lightly and added, You can live here for the moment. Although the island is a prison, no one will kill you anyhow. Cool. Ling Long nodded. From what Jian Wushuang had said, she learned a little about the island and thought it was a good place for her. Jian Wushuang helped Ling Long find a dwelling place and then went back to his house directly. Upon his arriving, Qian Yu came over. Blood Mountain, someone tells me there will be a fight between you and Tian Quan 3 days later, and the cost is enormous for the loser. Is this true? Qian Yu had been cultivating beside Star Jade Wall for a period of time, and he wasn't there when Ling Long came. Yes. Anything wrong? Jian Wushuang looked at Qian Yu. For the last 2 years, Jian Wushuang had spent most of his time improving his skills. But in his spare time, he drank alcohol with Qian Yu now and then, and gradually they two were sort of buddies. Damn! You were in Tian Quan's trap. Qian Yu moaned. Trap? What trap? Jian Wushuang asked. Well, you've been here just 2 years and don't know the situation. On Star Island, there are 12 kings renowned for prominent skills. Tian Quan ranks 6th regarding his strength among them. As far as I know, he had been immersing in practicing a secret skill all these years. Probably just around these days, he might make crucial progress. Once he succeeds, his strength will grow dramatically. Then, except for the king who had passed 2nd level Dark Tower, he will second to none. I guess the reason he wanted it in 3 days is that he will become very strong at that time and then he can defeat you easily. Qian Yu explained. I see. Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows, but not surprised at all. Oh, you are totally not worried about that, are you? Qian Yu gazed at his partner with an astonishing look. Nothing to worry about. Just take measures as the situation calls for. Jian Wushuang smiled confidently. Right then. Happy to hear you are fully prepared. Wish you good luck. Qian Yu left immediately. Jian Wushuang stood where he was with a hint of chill in his eyes. What a trap! He wants to beat me hollow 3 days later when he is strongest. Unfortunately, He won't succeed but be defeated instead. Jian Wushuang laughed callously. Is it a trap of Qianyu for him? Actually, that was also what Jian Wushuang wanted. Even though his strength will rise dramatically after his breakthrough, such an improvement is far from enough to help him pass through the second level of the Dark Tower. But my situation is different. My sword heart has reached level 5, and with the first divine in thunder, my strength has tremendously improved. Definitely, my skill is better than him. Maybe I can pass through level 2 of the Dark Tower. I was about to have a try today, but in case of any trick from Tianquan, it's better to wait until 3 days later before the duel starts. As he made up his mind, Jian Wushuang immediately headed to the palace of In Thunder again to improve divine In Thunder inside his body. 3 days elapsed quickly. In the center of Star Island, there was an extensive drill ground. It was so vast that even Dao masters could fight without any restraint. The drill ground was made to killing for experts on the island. At the moment, thousands of hundreds of people gathered around the drill ground. More than 9 out of 10 experts, over 600 stuck on the island arrived. Even most of dignitary 12 kings showed up. It was the day Jian Wushuang and Tianquan would have a duel. It was a battle between 2 great experts. Moreover, the loser would suffer. If he lost the fight, one promised to give the other treasures worthy of 1 trillion. And if the result was the other way around, the loser had to give up all his possession and left Star Island for 100,000 years, like gone forever. Such a big duel was particularly remarkable in this place. Early in the day, Tianquan wore a purple gown, standing in the center of the drill ground grimly. He was waiting for Jian Wushuang. Everyone cannot help but look at him while remarks were inundated the whole ground. This guy has passed the first level of the Dark Tower a long time ago and then obtained the strongest secret skill on the island. The skill is hard to get, but he has been keeping learning. I bet he is in good command of it. His strength is absolutely improved. Oh, but I've heard he made no progress in a phase for a long time and devoted full energy into it. I wonder if he takes a big step. I guess he does. Rumors go that the reason why Tianquan wanted to have the duel today is that his strength could grow much bigger after those days. Really? Then such an arrangement is totally a trap for Blood Mountain. Isn't it? They just continued to exchange their opinions. Some uttered in a deep voice while others blurt out loud. Tianquan heard them clearly. A cold smile showed on his face. Blood Mountain? Just a newbie here, reckless and stupid. Soon I will let him know who is the best on Star Island. Tianquan said to himself piercingly. What he didn't know was that, when he was waiting there for a fight, his enemy appeared in the Dark Tower. Second level inside the Dark Tower. With the gold-armored ancient god appearance, Jian Wushuang stared at Blood Demon in high rank in front of him with a hint of dark golden light in his eyes. 2 years ago, he stood the same place, trying to defeat high-ranked Blood Demon with his 9th Heaven Sword formation. He failed downright as a result. Today, 2 years later, he came here for another try, high-rank Blood Demon. Show me what you've got. Jian Wushuang licked his lips with a firm gaze. Even though he was being gazed at by Jian Wushuang, the high-rank Blood Demon did not hesitate. Striding forward a span of 300 meters, he suddenly appeared in front of Jian Wushuang and chopped down at him with his large sword. The attack was simple but domineering. Jian Wushuang was not in a hurry to display the 9th Heaven Sword formation from the beginning. Instead, he gripped the Blood Mountain sword tightly. There was a stream of power inside the longsword. Jian Wushuang quickly slashed out with the sword while releasing an overwhelming sword essence that was like a huge waterfall cascading downwards. Boundless Heaven Sword Art. 5th move. Even since he began cultivating on Star Island 2 years ago, his slaughter body had been working on comprehending the marvelous pattern on the Star Jade Wall. The swordsmanship contained in the pattern was completely unfathomable, but it left many impressions on him after his 2 years of meditation. Due to these impressions, Jian Wushuang had become more knowledgeable about sword principle. He also made great progress in the Boundless Heaven Sword Art. As of now, he could manage to display the 5th move of the Boundless Heaven Sword Art with effort. As for his incredible swordsmanship, Jian Wushuang could display it effortlessly, and his sword heart had also reached a new level. At the same time, a visible black thunderbolt surged out the instant the sword was swung, becoming part of the sword light. This black thunderbolt was the divine Yin thunder that Jian Wushuang controlled. Bump! A roar of terror echoed inside level 2 of the Black Tower. Jian Wushuang's body shook and the ground under his feet split open. Although the process was a bit difficult, his eyes glittered with surprise. No wonder the divine Yin thunder is one of the strongest secret skills on Star Island. I only managed to gather one, but my overall strength has improved so much. Although my strength is not quite equal to a high-rank blood demon, I'm still able to battle him head-on. With a faint smile, Jian Wushuang moved and immediately attacked. In level 2, Jian Wushuang confronted the high-rank blood demon with his swordsmanship, the help of the Blood Mountain sword, and the divine Yin thunder. A fierce fight broke out. Jian Wushuang was often suppressed by the high-rank blood demon, but his opponent could only dream about defeating him in a short time. Compared with 2 years ago, the situation was much better. Back then, he had been killed by the high-rank blood demon in only 3 blows. Bump! There was another loud explosion, forcing Jian Wushuang to retreat and causing his palms to feel slightly numb. I can barely face him with only my swordsmanship. If I want to defeat him, I will have to rely on the 9th Heaven Sword formation. Jian Wushuang recited the spell in his heart and 36 blood sky swords immediately appeared, combining to form a 6-meter-long scarlet long sword. A horrible aura condensed around his sword. Kill! A threatening light flashed in Jian Wushuang's eyes as the divine Yin thunder directly poured into the scarlet long sword, becoming part of it and causing the sword's horrifying aura to skyrocket. Then, this terrifying sword sliced through the air, accompanied by a surge of flowing light. Buzz! The scarlet flowing light went through the air and instantly arrived in front of the high-rank blood demon. The high-rank blood demon whispered as it brought down its sword without mercy. A huge knife shadow ruthlessly deck-ended. These two terrifying powers confronted each other once again. However, after this confrontation, it was the high-rank blood demon who was shaken and forced to step back. I have the upper hand. Jian Wushuang looked very pleased. For him, the most frightening feature of the high-rank blood demon was its outrageous power. But, now that he was able to use the 9th Heaven Sword formation with all of his strength, along with help from the divine Yin thunder, his power exceeded the high-rank blood demons. As a result, the threat to him was reduced dramatically. Go! Kill! While looking coldly at his opponent, Jian Wushuang attacked continuously and crazily, displaying the 9th Heaven Sword formation with all his might. High-rank blood demon tried to fight back, but every one of the attacks was difficult to face. He managed to fight back against the first few blows, but he could not resist against dozens of these horrifying attacks. He eventually failed to defend, and Jian Wushuang took a chance to directly penetrate the body of the high-rank blood demon. Finally, he passed the test on level 2 of the Black Tower. I made it! When he saw the body of the high-rank blood demon land heavily on the ground, Jian Wushuang felt relieved. The condition for leaving Star Island was to pass the 3 levels of the Black Tower, and he had already passed level 2. He was only 1 step away from level 3. However, the level 2 test was much more difficult than the one of level 1, so the test on level 3 would probably be even more extraordinary. Let's give it a try. Jian Wushuang walked toward level 3 of the Black Tower. After Jian Wushuang passed level 2 of the Black Tower, on the large campus of Star Island, Tian Quan, as well as everyone who came to watch this battle, had been waiting here patiently. What happened? It has been so long. Where's Blood Mountain? We have been waiting for him patiently. Why hasn't he turned up yet? Maybe he knows he is not strong enough to be Tian Quan's opponent, so he ran away from the battle? Hey, this Blood Mountain has only been on Star Island for 2 years. How could he be as powerful as Tian Quan? In my opinion, he must have been too scared to come. He can't escape, and no one on Star Island can die. On top of that, this duel was witnessed by Lord Spirit Sound in person, so even if he runs away, Lord Spirit Sound can declare it as his loss and give the 1 billion divine gems to Tian Quan. That means there's no use in trying to escape. Everyone was talking about it, and some people had obviously become impatient. Tian Quan's face was also a bit cold. At this time, Buzz, an enchanting red figure, suddenly appeared in the center of the drill grounds. Everyone around showed their respect towards him. Tian Quan, Blood Mountain is currently being tested in the Black Tower, and he still hasn't come out. Please wait a little longer, said Lord Spirit Sound. In the Black Tower? Tian Quan felt puzzled. Also, Lord Spirit Sound continued. Just now, Blood Mountain passed level 2 of the Black Tower. His simple words instantly caused a loud uproar on the drill grounds. The once chaotic drill ground had turned dead silent all of a sudden. It was so quiet that you could hear a needle drop. Those standing on the drill ground widened their eyes, their mouths making an O shape. The words of Lord Spirit Sound were still ringing in their heads. Just a moment ago, Xiefeng had broken through level 2 of the Black Tower. He had only been on Star Island for less than 2 years and had already surpassed level 2. How is that possible? The crowd was stunned. Barely anyone could accept this fact. However, the one who proclaimed it had been Lord Spirit Sound. Since it was said by a person like him, there was nothing to doubt about it. Xiefeng really did surpass it. Amazing! Really amazing! How long has it been? He actually surpassed it in just 2 short years. The second level of the Black Tower is more difficult than the first by 10 times at least. Except for those strong monsters, the kings on Star Island had been stuck at the first level for a very long time. Furthermore, they even cultivated a strong secret skill, but it did not manage to surpass level 2. However, this Xiefeng, he's a monster that cannot be comprehended. Numerous people were gasping in shock, each feeling very emotional about this news. After the momentary shocks, their gaze returned back to Tian Quan, who was standing in the middle of the drill ground. However, this time around, their eyes was very strange. In fact, some even showed a sense of schadenfreude. Just a moment before, they were gasping at Tian Quan's skills and were guessing how strong he could become after having a breakthrough in that secret skill. But now, everyone had the same thought. Things are not good for Tian Quan. Things are not good. Tian Quan was now in trouble. A tragedy. Even Tian Quan himself was well aware of his circumstances. How is this possible? Tian Quan froze completely. He had yet to walk out of that state of shock. Just before that, Tian Quan had not paid much attention to Jian Wushuang. 3 days ago, Jian Wushuang had used the 9th Heaven Sword formation to suppress him. However, he had not given much thought about it. Besides, once he achieved a breakthrough in the secret skill that he was refining, his strength would definitely reach a whole new level. He had the ultimate confidence that he could defeat Jian Wushuang easily. But now, Jian Wushuang had yet to appear at the scene. Just the Lord Spirit Sound's message alone was enough to bring him to despair. Level 2? He actually surpassed level 2? That's impossible. Tian Quan shook his head crazily. God, this was the second time. Only the strongest monster among the 12 kings of Star Island had surpassed it as well. Furthermore, that monster took a damn long time to achieve that. But this Xiefeng had only been in the Star Island for 2 years, and he already achieved such tremendous improvements in his strength. That's it. That's it. Tian Quan was expressionless. He was very clear of his own circumstance. Although his strength was skyrocketing, there was still a huge gap between him and level 2. He was obviously not a worthy opponent of Jian Wushuang, who had already surpassed it. People around him were giving him looks of pity. Just at that moment, whoosh, a shadow came flying past them. It was Jian Wushuang, who had just walked out of the Black Tower. After passing level 2's challenge, which was to defeat the high-ranked blood demon, Jian Wushuang had attempted to break through level 3. His opponent was once again a blood demon, but its strength was extremely scary. Jian Wushuang gave his best but failed after being hit by 2 knives. After walking out of the Black Tower, Jian Wushuang immediately rushed towards the drill ground. Upon arrival, he saw many complicated looks. Some were in shock, some filled with admiration, and some were even filled with jealousy. Seems like Lord Spirit Sound has already released the news of me passing level 2? Jian Wushuang glanced at Lord Spirit Sound and thought to himself. Xiefeng Tian Quan, Since the both of you are here, then let's begin today's duel, said Lord Spirit Sound. Okay. Jian Wushuang nodded his head slightly and immediately glanced at Tian Quan. His gaze became cold. Bastard! Tian Quan had a dark expression on his face and his body was shaking in anger. However, he was the one who invited Lord Spirit Sound to be the witness to this duel. The conditions could not be changed. Humph, so what if he passed level 2? Perhaps he was just lucky. Yes, it was pure luck. His strength might not be that strong after all. Tian Quan comforted himself. I've achieved a breakthrough in that secret skill and my strength has increased greatly. I'm not that far away from level 2. This fight is unnecessary. It might even be possible that I beat him. Comforting himself like that, a streak of light flashed in his gaze. His expressions turned crazy and he started the fight straight away. Shush! Tian Quan launched a sudden attack and he appeared in front of Jian Wushuang in an instant. At that moment when he moved, a burning flame appeared on his back. This flame burned the air and it instantly formed an image of an exotic beast on Tian Quan's back. The flaming exotic beast was struggling and it was emitting an extremely strong aura. Is this the secret skill that he has been cultivating? Jian Wushuang frowned at the image of that exotic beast. He had taken a look at the introductions of the 9 strongest secret skills of Star Island. Tian Quan had exhibited one of the secret skills that could raise one's offensive power, which was considered hard to acquire. He had already managed to control this skill quite well. The proof was the image on his back. Although Tian Quan's aura skyrocketed with the appearance of the image, Jian Wushuang was not taken aback at all. There's no need to waste time dealing with him. Jian Wushuang felt a tug in his head and he transformed into the gold-armored ancient god. Right afterward, sword shadows immediately shot out from his interspatial ring. These shadows instantly came together in the void, forming a 2 feet long scarlet longsword. This longsword was extremely sharp and had a terrifying aura. At the moment it was formed, a black thunderbolt shot out from Jiang Wushuang's body into the longsword, caused the sword's aura to skyrocket. Go! Jian Wushuang hushed lowly and the blade immediately flashed across the void and appeared in front of Tian Quan. After breaking through the void easily, the longsword aimed for Tian Quan's head. It all happened too fast. The crowd did not have enough time to react. However, that was not the case for Tian Quan. The black long spear that he was holding was ready to be launched. It aimed straight to the front. This pierce created a huge hole in the void. Boom! Following the sound, Tian Quan felt a huge force reaching him through the long spear in his hand. His whole body shook and he felt something sweet in his mouth. He almost gushed out blood. You actually held that in? Not bad. Jian Wushuang laughed faintly, after which, he controlled the scarlet longsword to shoot out again at an alarming speed. Tian Quan had just barely blocked the first attack and was regaining his posture when the second attack already came his way. Why is this happening? Tian Quan's eyes were flickering madly. He immediately spun the long spear and the flaming exotic beast image behind him let out a huge growl. It became even more powerful. Boom! Tian Quan threw the black projectile in his hands. Jian Wushuang controlled his scarlet longsword and aimed at Tian Quan for the 3rd time. No! Tian Quan only managed to let out a pitiful cry before his head was pierced by the longsword. The winner had been decided. On the drill ground, Tian Quan's head came back together. However, he was as pale as snow. His body was shaking and his gaze was hollow. The experts in the crowd watching were murmuring to themselves in shock. The gap is too big. 3 moves. All it took was 3 attacks to kill Tian Quan. This is absolutely overwhelming. He has such strength. No wonder he can surpass level 2. The crowd had all these thoughts to themselves and were looking at Jian Wushuang in admiration. If they used to think that luck played a little role in helping Jian Wushuang to pass level 2, they were now proven wrong by his real strength. After all, Tian Quan was one of the 12 kings. Besides, after he achieved a breakthrough in the secret skill that he was cultivating, his rank was in the top 3. However, he had failed to take just 3 attacks from Jian Wushuang before he had been totally crushed. Perhaps, other than the 5 big Dao masters, Only the strongest monster in the 12 kings of Star Island could display such strength. Tian Quan, you've lost. You must fulfill your promise. Jian Wushuang had already retrieved the Blood Sky sword. Standing in the drill ground, he looked at Tian Quan silently. Tian Quan's body was shaking. He was so unwilling to do so. However, since Lord Spirit Sound was present, he could only give away all his belongings and treasures. The treasures were all given to Jian Wushuang, including the spear he had used just now. It was an emperor weapon level. Tian Quan listened carefully. According to the rules of the duel, you must leave Star Island today. You will then roam in the Fog Sea and never return in the next 10,000 years. Jian Wushuang proclaimed without any emotion on his tone. After hearing that, Tian Quan's face became even whiter than a piece of paper. He had lost all his treasures, but he could think of ideas to gain back some. But if he were to lose his life as well, then that would be the end. With no treasure in hand, asking him to go to the Fog Sea would be the same as asking him to die. In conclusion, Tian Quan was in deep trouble this time. He had failed terribly. However, not only did he suffer loss, he had not even accomplished his true goal. Even if he had failed terribly, he had only himself to blame. With the presence of Lord Spirit Sound's power, Tian Quan could only walk out of Star Island cooperatively. Jian Wushuang was standing on the drill ground, looking at Tian Quan's back as he left. But just at this moment, "Oh, seems like there's a commotion today?" A thick voice was heard suddenly, following which, the crowd saw a purple-haired elegant man walking slowly towards them. He had 2 long spears on his back. This man had an untouchable aura in his midbrow. Every step he took caused purple ripples in the void beneath his feet. Everyone on the drill ground squinted their eyes when they saw someone walking towards them. Zidong. It's Zidong. He is the official number 1 king among the 12 kings. It's Monster Zidong. Is Zidong actually here? Isn't he always doing closed-door training? The whole drill ground became chaotic. Jian Wushuang lifted his head to see who was coming. So, is he Zidong? Jian Wushuang's gaze was starting to freeze. He had been on the island for 2 years and knew a little bit about some of the experts here. For example, he knew the names of the 12 kings on Star Island. Of course, he also knew this king in front of him was ranked first and the so-called monster. He was also the only one on the island who had passed the test on level 2 of the Black Tower. Buzz. Zidong landed in the drill ground in front of Jian Wushuang. A pair of strange eyes glowing with purple light were staring straight into Jian Wushuang's. "Are you Xiefeng?" Zidong asked with a calm voice. "Yes, I am." Jian Wushuang nodded his head. "For all these years, I have been doing closed-door training. I never took notice of what's happening on Star Island. If Lord Spirit Sound had not notified me just now, saying that you've passed level 2, I'm afraid I wouldn't have even known that a character like you arrived on the island," Zidong said. "Oh." Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrow and glanced at Lord Spirit Sound unconsciously. He got the news of Zidong doing closed-door training from Chen Yu. He knew that he rarely came out, but he actually appeared in front of him today. It turned out that Lord Spirit Sound told Zidong the news of him passing to level 2, which was made him go out in shock. Being stared by Jian Wushuang, Lord Spirit Sound kept his highly unfathomable smile. He was not intending to give any response. "Xiefeng, there are quite a number of experts on Star Island. But before today, I was the only one who had managed to pass level 2. For so many years, I have been standing at the peak all by myself. It may sound glorious, but did you know the other feelings associated with it?" Zidong stared at Jian Wushuang. "I understand." Jian Wushuang nodded slightly. Indeed, he did. It was always lonely being above of everyone else. The other experts, like the other kings, could find their own opponents on Star Island. They could fight on a regular basis. But Zidong was an exception. In the Eternal Realm on Star Island, he was already undefeatable. No one dared to provoke nor attack him. And as for the 5 Big Dao Masters on the island, they were way stronger than him. He was not qualified to challenge them. This was why he never had a decent opponent for all these years. He did not even have a chance to fight. This was an unbearable torture for someone born for combat. I used to not have any opponents. But things are different now. Zidong smiled faintly and his gaze towards Jian Wushuang became brighter. I am very excited. After all these years, there's finally someone else who's surpassed level 2 and can enter the eternal realm. Xiefeng, come fight with me. Xiefeng, come fight me. Chaos broke out immediately with Zidong's challenge among the whole drill ground. Challenge? Is Zidong challenging Xiefeng? Haha. Zidong finally found an opponent. We haven't seen Zidong fight in so long. The last time he fought, he hadn't even passed level 2. Zidong and Xiefeng? Who will win this fight? One by one, the gazes of the crowd all brightened up. Jian Wushuang also noticed the burning passion in Zidong's eyes. He laughed and nodded. I also want to know how strong the number 1 king of Star Island is. Jian Wushuang had really high expectations. He would never turn down this fight. It was always lonely being on top of everyone else. Now, the 2 strongest people in the eternal realm of Star Island were him and Zidong. Naturally, they would have to treat each other as honorable opponents. Make a move. I hope that you won't disappoint me. Seeing Jian Wushuang take up the fight, the corners of Zidong's mouth went up. I will try my best. Jian Wushuang smiled faintly, following which, he took out his 36 blood sky swords and they instantly formed a 2 feet long scarlet long sword. A black thunderbolt traveled from Jian Wushuang's body into the sword formation once again. Oh! Divine in Thunder? Zidong took notice of Jian Wushuang's move. When he saw him using the Divine in Thunder, his eyes lit up. He laughed. Haha! What a coincidence! That's what I'm cultivating too. You too. Jian Wushuang was flustered. Then let's see whose is stronger. After speaking, Jian Wushuang controlled his scarlet longsword such that it shot out like an explosion. It was as fast as lightning. The crowd was unable to see it flash past the void. On the other hand, the longsword's target, Zidong, laughed coldly. When the sword was approaching him, he suddenly moved his body. Whoosh! A purple shadow flashed past the void. It was as quick as a ghost. Jian Wushuang's longsword had fixed its target. It was already so close to touching Zidong, but he moved away so quickly. In that instant, he literally moved past the edges of the sword. What? Jian Wushuang was greatly taken aback. The first launch of his 9th heaven sword formation was the traceless sword formation. Its strength was its fast speed, followed by its also remarkable power. With the support of the Divine in Thunder, the sword formation's shooting rate became even faster. Usually, it was difficult for even the Eternal Realm to capture the shadow of the longsword. However, Zidong actually managed to just pass errand it. Dodge the sword formation? What kind of a speed was that? Xiefeng, take this spear. After going around the sword formation, Zidong appeared in front of Jian Wushuang. The 2 long spears on his back had already formed together. He looked at Jian Wushuang with a grin and threw the spears in his hands. It all happened as fast as lightning. Jian Wushuang had already turned into the gold-armored ancient god state. However, the armor was too big. He was unable to avoid Zidong's attack. He could only take out his Blood Mountain sword and perform swordsmanship as he launched it against his opponent. Clang! Once the tip of the long spear landed on the blood-colored Blood Mountain sword, it caused a strong spiral effect. The force seemed like it was going to grind Jian Wushuang's hand. Luckily, the physical strength of Jian Wushuang's gold-armored ancient god was incredibly strong. With the addition of his Shueying armor, he was well protected. Humph! Jian Wushuang snorted coldly. He dismissed the spiral force easily, although he was forced to take a few steps back while doing so. While he was backtracking, Jian Wushuang's gaze was full of glistening flashes of light. He controlled his 9th heaven sword formation and immediately launched an attack back to Zidong. Your sword formation may be quick and your power may be strong enough, but it's such a pity that you're obviously not too familiarized with using it yet. Your actions are clumsy and not flexible. Against me, a sword formation like this is basically useless. Zidong smiled lightly and just stood where he was, allowing the scarlet long sword to aim directly for him. Right before the long sword was about to hit him, Zidong suddenly moved his body and bypassed it once again. Again. Jian Wushuang's face was sullen. The ninth heaven sword formation that he was controlling was super fast. It had met many opponents before and none of them had managed to surpass it. Zidong was the only one. Not flexible enough? Jian Wushuang furrowed his eyebrows and sighed to himself. After all, he had just gotten control of the ninth heaven sword formation recently, which was the reason he was at the initial realm of understanding towards the first attack of this skill. This led to the flaws in his activation of the skill. Jian Wushuang was on the drill ground, focusing on controlling the ninth heaven sword formation. He shot them at Zidong at a crazy speed, but the target just stood there and moved his body just when strictly required. He managed to avoid 10 consecutive attacks easily. Jian Wushuang's swings did not even touch the corners of Zidong's sleeves. I've already said, your sword formation has no effects on me at all. Once again, he avoided the sword formation's attack. Zidong shook his head and snorted, and then his body flashed past violently. He was too quick for the ninth heaven sword formation that Jian Wushuang was controlling. It proved that he was too inflexible. The ninth heaven sword formation was actually capable of being speedy and powerful, but Jian Wushuang only knew how to control it to launch an attack straight forward. The formation speed would slow down if it was to turn or change direction in the void. Fail! Zidong laughed faintly and launched the long sword he was holding onto again. This attack was faster and scarier than the previous one. The dangerous attack made the part of the void in front of him blow up violently. Although Jian Wushuang's sword formation tried its best to protect him, his arm was still numb from the shock and fresh blood was dripping from the corners of his mouth. Afterward, Zidong's spear skills went completely insane. One by one, the spear shadows flew towards Jian Wushuang. They were strangely fast and traveled at unexpected angles, which suffocated Jian Wushuang. He set up an all-body protection and managed to withstand a few spear attacks. However, the projectiles soon pierced through the protection. Jian Wushuang had lost the fight. Jian Wushuang's body had recovered completely as he laid on the drill ground. The 2-feet-long scarlet longsword was floating silently beside him. Jian Wushuang glanced at the ninth heaven sword formation beside him and shook his head in shame. I relied on the ninth heaven sword formation the most. If Zidong had not dodged its attacks, I could have battled with him. But in the end, my sword formation was nothing to him. Without the sword formation, once he comes near me, I would be left with limited ways to attack back. I fail with dignity in this duel. Indeed, he had failed with dignity. True to his status as Star Island's widely recognized #1 king, Zidong's strength was much greater than Jian Wushuang's. He has already formed his own Dao long ago and not just one of them. He has already cultivated the divine in Thunder secret skill till level 2. It is much stronger than mine. His knowledge of the spear is also extraordinarily strong. Jian Wushuang was praising Zidong in his heart. Xiefeng. At this moment, Zidong looked at Jian Wushuang with a smile on his face. Your current strength is still lacking a little bit. You can't even make me get serious. After hearing this, Jian Wushuang could not help but laugh bitterly. He could also see that Zidong fought with him casually just now. It was obvious that he was just messing with him. Those surrounding them heard the conversation and were taken aback. The strength that Zidong exhibited just now totally crushed Jian Wushuang. And yet this was not all that he had? Of course, it is just your current strength that's weaker than mine. We can't be sure of what's to come in the future. Zidong smiled lightly. I can see your potential. There is still a humongous space for improvement. Firstly, let's talk about your heavy sword formation. You probably just mastered the technique recently. There is still room for improvement. Once you level up to a certain degree and become more flexible, you can then make me really give out my best. Other than that, you still have a definite room for improvement in sword principle. Also, for the Divine in Thunder, you only managed to condense one thunderbolt just now. It was also very weak. If you manage to improve your sword principle and Divine in Thunder greatly, you can then come and fight a real duel with me. You may even defeat me. And if you have enough time, I am even sure that you can surpass level 3 of the Black Tower. Zidong said these lines with a serious gaze. Those on the drill ground listening were all shocked. They did not expect Zidong to make such good remarks about Jian Wushuang after defeating him completely. Jian Wushuang could be able to defeat Zidong in not too long? And Zidong also said that if Jian Wushuang was given enough time, he could surpass level 3. Is that possible? Jian Wushuang was also lost. He shook his head and said, "That will all be in the future and no one knows for sure. At the very least, my current strength cannot be compared to yours. But I believe that it is just a matter of time before I can fight a real duel with you and even defeat you." Haha. I am actually very excited about that. Zidong laughed. Then from today onwards, if you need anyone to help you gauge your skills, feel free to come to find me anytime. Anyways, I've been on the island for so long that I am always bored. If I could have an opponent like you to accompany me, I could not ask for more. Thanks. Jian Wushuang's eyes lit up. Zidong was definitely a true expert. At least Jian Wushuang had never seen someone as strong as Zidong in this level of the Eternal Realm. In fact, Jian Wushuang felt that even the peerless genius of the Xia clan, who was widely recognized to be the #1 in the Eternal Realm of Eternal World, was not compatible to Zidong in terms of strength. It would also definitely be beneficial for Jian Wushuang to have an expert to help him gauge his skills. I am looking forward to the day that you become stronger than me. Zidong smiled, and after speaking, he turned and left. Jian Wushuang did not stay for long on the drill ground. He immediately returned to his house. He sensed some flaws in his 9th Heaven Sword formation while fighting with Zidong just now. Since it was an imperfection, he had to fix it for sure. The crowd on the drill ground started to disperse too. That was the end of the commotion for the day. However, Jian Wushuang remained a hot topic among the crowds on Star Island for a while. It was incredible that he could surpass level 2 of the Black Tower after just 2 years there. Not only did Zidong personally acknowledge Jian Wushuang's potential, he even thought that Jian Wushuang could surpass level 3 if he was given sufficient time. A high evaluation like this naturally caused Star Island to become quiet. Even the 5 Dao Masters were also surprised. However, although they started to take notice of Jian Wushuang, they never showed up. In the depths of Stellar Fog Sea, in the lake covered with gray smog, Lady Red was still sitting quietly on a huge lotus leaf in the middle of the lake. There was a playful smile on her face. This enchanting woman was naturally Lord Spirit Sound. Lord Spirit Sound had an original body. Once incarnated, the one on Star Island would just be her incarnation. Her original body was always on the lake. Xiefeng, Xiefeng. Lord Spirit Sound repeatedly mentioned Jian Wushuang's name. This Xiefeng is not bad indeed. As an inverse cultivator, he has now acquired that marvelous sword formation. Most importantly, he has an extraordinarily high level of understanding. He is now capable of passing the test on level 2. If he's given enough time, he could even pass the one on level 3. That is very likely. Seems like it won't be long before the lineage of stars gains one more disciple. Lord Spirit Sound mumbled a few sentences to herself. Suddenly, her voice stopped. She looked towards her side. The Stellar Fog Sea had many misty fogs that could cover the crowd's line of vision. However, they did not have any effect on Lord Spirit Sound. Her gaze could pass through the endless fog into the vast void. She looked towards a huge island that was at the extreme end of the Stellar Fog Sea. That island was extremely far away from Star Island. Could be said that it was on the opposite side. That island was also covered in fog, but it was even denser and much more mysterious. Gu King, a fella came to my Star Island. He has great potential and has chances of leaving the Fog Sea. Most importantly, that fella has a definite relationship with your master. Lord Spirit Sound opened her mouth and her voice traveled through the vast void to the mysterious island. An ancient and thick voice was heard from the deepest part of the island as a response to Lord Spirit Sound. Why, are you not interested at all? Lord Spirit Sound found it strange. Interested? The ancient voice paused before continuing. No need to bother about him for now. Bring him to me when he can really pass the tests on Star Island. After speaking, the voice disappeared completely. Sitting on the huge lotus leaf, Lord Spirit Sound smiled and closed her eyes. After the duel with Zidong, Jian Wushuang returned to his residence. Piece of empty land. Go! Jian Wushuang controlled the scarlet longsword formed by 36 blood sky swords. The longsword shot out forwards, traveled at a breathtaking speed. Suddenly, Jian Wushuang felt a tug in his heart. He controlled the longsword to change direction mid-air. The change in direction immediately caused the sword to pause temporarily, after which there was an obvious slowdown in its speed. Its forward attack was acceptable, but once it changes direction, its speed slows down a lot. Awkward. It is indeed very awkward. Seems like I have to spend a long time to investigate this ninth heaven sword formation properly. Jian Wushuang spoke to himself. In the following days, Jian Wushuang naturally continued to cultivate on his own. He continued to split the workload among the two original bodies. The world body stayed in the divine Yin Thunder Palace for a long period of time. It focused on improving the strength of the divine Yin Thunder in its body. On the other hand, his slaughter body often went to Star Jade Wall to meditate. After a period of meditation, he would find Zidong to battle out. Zidong had been withering on the Star Island for too long before he finally found an opponent in Jian Wushuang. He could not be more eager to battle with Jian Wushuang every single day. Jian Wushuang had a high level of awareness. In addition to that, he also had the perfect opportunity given by Star Island. Thus, he was naturally improving at a remarkable rate. With an expert like Zidong to help him practice, Jian Wushuang improved continuously in his ninth heaven sword formation. He was becoming increasingly familiarized with it. The Star Island was cut off from the rest of the world. It was basically a giant prison. Gradually, time passed. The people on the island were like prisoners. They led boring lives. They spent most of their time doing emotionless cultivation. They had already forgotten about the passing of time. Time was just a number to them. No matter how much time had passed, there was not much significance. However, that was not the case for Jian Wushuang. Before he came to Stellar Fog Sea, he asked Wang Yuan how long Leng Rushuang could last without the Dragon Phoenix fruit. Wang Yuan's answer back then was 300 years. That was to say, Jian Wushuang must bring the Dragon Phoenix fruit back within the next 300 years. 300 years was not a very long time. For the people on Star Island, it was nothing. However, for Jian Wushuang, they were crucial each and every year. When he was on Star Island, he took advantage of every minute and every second to think of ways to increase his strength. Just like that, he had been on the island for 210 years. Jian Wushuang had never stayed at a place for so long ever since he started cultivation. It was also his longest in-depth cultivation. An elegant man with long purple hair was seated at a table in an ordinary backyard on Star Island. He sat there while drinking from the bottle of wine that he was holding. Zidong. A gentle voice was heard and a cool, elegant woman walked in. This woman was also one of the kings on Star Island. She was on good terms with Zidong. It's so rare to see you drinking alone. Why? Did Xiefeng stop looking for you to gauge his skills? The woman looked at Zidong. Ever since he defeated me 120 years ago, he rarely came to find me. The last time was 30 years ago. Zidong laughed. That Xiefeng is really a monster. The woman shook her head as she sighed. When you guys first fought against each other more than 200 years ago, you basically outclassed him completely. But who would have thought that he would defeat you less than 100 years later? It's less than 100 years. 100 years was nothing to us. But in this period of time, his strength improved by many levels. It was amazing. Hearing that, Zidong could not help but shake his head and sigh. Xiefeng's potential was unexpected. When I first fought with him, I saw that his strength had much room for improvement and perhaps he could outperform me in the future. But I never thought that he would improve so quickly. By the way, I heard that Xiefeng came to challenge you a while back. What was the result? Zidong asked suddenly. What else? Of course, I was defeated by him. The woman laughed bitterly. I don't even know what he's thinking. 30 years ago, he started to challenge others like crazy. Not only did he challenge us kings, but he even challenged each and every single one of them in the eternal realm who had average strength. Furthermore, he acted strangely while he was fighting. He could easily have won us, but he purposely held back his strength every time. He would use his sword formation to battle with us for a long time before defeating us. Haha. He is using you guys to train his sword formation. Zidong laughed. 210 years ago, I told him that there were some flaws in his sword formation. Since then, he focused on improving it. When I was helping him to gauge his skills later on, I could feel an obvious improvement in his control of the sword formation. It was much more flexible than before. By now, he probably already has an ultimate control over it. Humph, I saw that too. When he was dealing with me, he deliberately suppressed the sword formation strength and speed by a lot. However, its flexibility improved tremendously. The woman sighed. By the way, Zidong, if Xiefeng continues to improve at this speed, do you think he can really pass the test on level 3? Of course he can. Zidong nodded his head in certainty. If I thought that it was possibly more than 200 years ago, then now I'm absolutely certain of it. It won't be long before he leaves Star Island. Are you so sure about it? The woman was surprised. Just wait and see. Zidong smiled but did not explain much. While the woman was chit-chatting with Zidong in the backyard, at the Divine Yin Thunder Palace on Star Island something else was happening. Jian Wushuang was in the middle of the Black Thunderbolt Ocean. He had a stern and serious look on his face. We have reached the extreme. Jian Wushuang held on tightly to his fists. A streak of light shone violently in his gaze. More than 200 years ago, his world body had situated in the Divine Yin Thunder Palace, sucking in the black thunderbolts. As that progressed, the Divine Yin Thunder in his body naturally became stronger. Besides, he no longer only had one Tao of it. He had 10 of them. Each Tao of the Black Divine Yin Thunder had accumulated the maximum thunderbolts. This meant that the Divine Yin Thunder had reached the peak of level 1. One more step and he would reach level 2. Here we go. Jian Wushuang took a deep breath. The 10 Divine Yin Thunders, which had grown to the fullest extent inside his body, gathered and immediately began to fuse. There were 3 levels for the secret skill of Divine Yin Thunder. The first level began with the formation of a Divine Yin Thunder. 10 Divine Yin Thunders was the peak of level 1. On level 2, the 10 Thunders would be fused together and evolve into a more advanced and stronger Divine Yin Thunder. Right now, Jian Wushuang started the fusion. Each of the thunder was extremely wild and violent. When 10 of them were fusing together, the process was very fierce and a huge burden to both the body and mind. Even a Tao master couldn't withstand such pain. Jian Wushuang had an extraordinarily strong willpower. Besides, he was fully prepared for this. The severe pain caused by the fusion process did not affect him too much. Half a day later, the 10 divine thunders fused together and began to metamorphosize. The most difficult and dangerous process was over. Metamorphosis was just a matter of time. After a short while, there was only one divine Yin Thunder left inside his body. This one was smaller than the previous ones, but with much stronger power. The newly evolved divine Yin Thunder was scarlet. Yes, a scarlet divine thunder. Jian Wushuang flipped his hand and the scarlet thunder appeared on his palm. Seeing this, his eyebrow raised. He could feel a terrifying aura hidden inside the scarlet thunder. Such aura was enough to be a threat to even a Tao master. The level 2 of divine Yin Thunder. Jian Wushuang clenched his fists, looking pleasantly surprised. The power of divine Yin Thunder will improve dramatically with each advancement to a higher level. Now that it had reached level 2, the thunder's power was at least 10 times stronger than before, which also brought great improvement to his strength. This secret skill of divine Yin Thunder was so powerful. I was lucky enough to have the Thunder Sea of Thunder Palace to help assist cultivation. Otherwise, I would have to wait for God knows how long to reach level 2. He looked around Thunder Sea with a light smile. He noticed that when the divine Yin Thunder inside his body reached level 2, the surrounding Thunder Sea was no longer useful to him. If he wanted to continue to upgrade the divine Yin Thunder, he had to rely on himself. Zedong also practices the divine In Thunder. He reached level 2 a long time ago, but stopped there ever since. It must be because the Thunder Palace can no longer be of any help. Jian Wushuang shook his head. Although the Thunder Palace had lost its purpose, Jian Wushuang did not care. For more than 200 years, I had trained meticulously on the Star Island. My power improved at an amazing speed because of the island's resources and the fights with those experts here. Now, my sword heart has reached level 6, the peak of level 6. I'm more skilled with the 9th heaven sword formation now, and its power is stronger. Speaking of level, I now have a perfect mastery of its first sword formation, Traceless Sword. After 200 years of practice, my Star River secret skill had reached level 15. The basic power was 3 times stronger than before. There is also the Divine In Thunder, which has now reached level 2. Jian Wushuang's eyes shone brightly. Compared with 200 years ago, I'm much more powerful in strength. I have reached the top in every field, and it is difficult to make too much progress in a short period of time. That is to say, even if I were given a few hundred years or more, my strength would not advance rapidly. I have made every possible breakthrough and upgraded to the maximum. Next, I should try to pass the 3rd level of the Black Tower. The 3rd level was much more difficult than the 2nd level. 200 years ago, after passing level 2, Jian Wushuang tried to pass the 3rd level. However, the gap was greater than expected. Today, his strength had tremendously improved in every aspect. He was qualified enough to challenge the 3rd level now. On the Star Island, 4 tall black towers stood silently. On the roof of a pavilion near the Black Tower, 2 figures were sitting in front of a chessboard. They were playing chess. Both were holding black and white pieces respectively. Life on the Star Island was as dry as a chip. Playing chess was one of the few things that could kill time. Just then, the slender elder holding the white pieces suddenly moved his eyes and looked toward the Black Tower. Look! Isn't that Blood Mountain? Blood Mountain. The other man looked over. Yes, it's him, the monster. I heard that he's been practicing like crazy. Why did he come here today? The lean elder wore a strange expression and said, judging from his direction, he's heading toward the Black Tower. Isn't he? Speaking of which, the slender elder suddenly thought of a possibility. Is he going to challenge the Black Tower? 200 years ago, he just passed level 2. Now, he is going to try level 3. The expressions of the 2 elders grew excited at once. The Black Tower seldom had visitors. Those who came to challenge the tower all had confidence in their strength and believed they could pass. Jian Wushuang came here, which meant that he had the confidence to pass level 3. It's just more than 200 years. And he is already confident enough to pass level 3? The slender elder was a little stunned, but reacted immediately. Quick! Inform the others. 200 years later, Blood Mountain came back to the Black Tower again. This is a big event. Spread the news and let everyone know. Good, quick! The 2 men moved immediately. The Star Island was a small place with just a few people. It was very easy for them to spread the news. All they needed to do was to shout from high up. In a moment, everyone on Star Island was aware of the event. The entire Star Island was shaken instantly. In front of the Black Tower, there were huge crowds. Almost everyone on Star Island was here. The 12 heavenly kings, except Tianquan, who had already left Star Island, were all here. The 5 Tao Masters, though didn't show their faces, were all hidden in the dark and watching quietly. Everyone was attracted by the news that Jian Wushuang was going to challenge the Black Tower. The crowd was noisy. The 3rd level. After the 3rd level, he could leave Stellar Fog Sea. I'm wondering if he can do it. It's hard to say. This Blood Mountain is a complete monster. He is even more ingenious than Zedong. No more than 2 years after coming to this island, he had passed level 2, and improved with shocking progress ever since. Now, it is really possible to cross level 3. Anyway, he is the most talented Eternal Realm I have ever seen. If he cannot pass the 3rd level, then there will be no chance for us at all. Everyone was discussing about it. Among the crowd, Zidong and the elegant young woman stood side by side. Zidong smiled and said, "I just told you it won't take much time before Blood Mountain passed level 3. But I didn't expect him to do so immediately. Don't be too optimistic. He is just going to try but might not pass. You know how hard it is to pass the 3rd level. You've put so much effort, but are still far away from passing it. Blood Mountain, although very talented, only practiced for a short time. He is not likely to pass," the woman said while shaking her head. "Haha, let's have a bet then. I bet Blood Mountain will succeed." Zidong smiled. Over the past 200 years, he had been in contact with Jian Wushuang many times. He had some understanding of Jian Wushuang's character after so many practices with him. He knew clearly that Jian Wushuang wouldn't challenge level 3 without certain treasures. Now that he was here, the success rate would never be less than 50%. On the other side, Ling Long and Qian Yu also stood there. "Blood Mountain, you must succeed." Qian Yu clasped his hands, his eyes shining brightly. He was the first person Jian Wushuang knew on Star Island, and they were naturally good friends. Because of their relationship, no one dared to offend him in Star Island. He admired and appreciated Jian Wushuang. Of course, he hoped he can go through. Ling Long also stared at the Black Tower, but with a complicated expression. She came to Stellar Fog Sea with Jian Wushuang and witnessed his growth and progress with her own eyes. Although Jian Wushuang was stronger than her when they first came here, the difference between them was not big. But what about now? Within just 200 years, Jian Wushuang's strength had improved to an unimaginable level. Her strength also improved with the help of the Starjade Wall, but as compared to Jian Wushuang, the gap was really too big. In the midst of all the discussion, a figure suddenly appeared on the steps of the Black Tower. "Hihi. It's such a lively scene." An enchanting woman in red smiled and overlooked the crowd. "My lord, Lord Spirit Sound." The crowd before the Black Tower immediately saluted respectfully. "Are you all here to watch Blood Mountain challenge the 3rd level?" the Lord Spirit Sound asked smilingly. "In that case, let me do you a favor and show you his actions in the 3rd level." Just then, she waved her hand. Some ripples appeared in the void beside her. Then a huge mirror image showed up. This mirror image reflected the scene of the 3rd level inside the Black Tower. Inside the 3rd level, Jian Wushuang, wearing a blood-red robe and carrying a long sword, was confronting the Blood Demon, the fiercest demon in the 3rd level. The two were more than 300 meters away from each other. Apparently, the fight had not started. In front of the Black Tower, all eyes were fixed on the mirror image. Hidden in the dark, the 5 Dao Masters also looked up. Level 3 of the Black Tower. Jian Wushuang stood silently, totally unaware of the shock outside brought by his actions. All his attention was on the Blood Demon in front of him right now. The highest level of Blood Demon. Last time we met, he defeated me with only 2 moves. But this time, it will be different. He held his fists and made the first move, without any hesitation. Buzz! The immaterial sword essence burst out. Several blood sky swords appeared in front of him, and formed a 6-meter-long scarlet sword in no time. At the same time, his body began to swell. He then transformed into a gold-armored ancient god, with the Blood Mountain sword in his hand. At that moment, Jian Wushuang had adjusted to his peak state. "Let the fight begin." Following the shout, a scarlet thunderbolt shot out from his body and fused into the scarlet long sword. Soon afterwards, the long sword shook a little and disappeared. The first sword formation of the 9th Heaven Sword formation, Traceless Sword. Why was it called the Traceless Sword? Because the sword formation would sweep out without leaving any trace in the void. Now, Jian Wushuang had a perfect mastery of the first sword formation, and left no trace when performing the skill. Too fast. Apart from several experts, most of the audience in front of the tower did not see where the scarlet sword go. They only heard a violent wind-breaking sound. Later on, the void in front of the Blood Demon was broken through, and streams of spatial turbulences rattled wildly. The terrible strong power shocked those hidden Dao Masters. The Blood Demon, with a wide and thick saber, attacked as violently as before. Before most of the audience noticed Jian Wushuang's long sword, The blood demon's saber was already on its way. Clang! With a loud crash, the sparks caused by violent collision of metal scattered away. All the audience noticed a shudder from the blood demon's body after the collision. Soon, Jian Wushuang launched another violent attack with his scarlet longsword. The long sword pierced through the void with so much ease. Like fish in the water, the sword showed up again in front of the blood demon. Shoo! The scarlet longsword shuttled through the void with terrible strength and stabbed at the blood demon again and again. As Jian Wushuang became more skilled in controlling the sword formation, he could use it to hack, chop, and even swipe, not just simply stabbing. The long sword was fast and flexible, making it difficult for the blood demon to resist. So quick, too quick, not only fast, but also so flexible. The audience cannot stop marveling at the scenes. Blood Mountain's sword formation is indeed formidable. He was not that agile the last time we practiced. As he became more skilled with the sword formation, his sword control grew more and more flexible. The power of this sword formation has been upgraded to a whole new level. Zidong gasped in admiration. His sword formation is impressive. But this alone is not enough to pass the third level. The woman beside him said. As expected, the blood demon finally erupted completely. The blood demon suddenly waved his saber and rushed forward. Majestic power burst out from the saber and beat off the scarlet longsword over and over again. He quickly approached Jian Wushuang and was right in front of him in no time. Swoosh! The blood demon hacked with the saber, so swift and violent, like a thunderbolt in the clear sky. At such a sight, all the audience sighed pitifully, thinking that Jian Wushuang was about to lose. After all, the sword formation was his most powerful weapon. With the protection from it, he could fight with the blood demon face to face, but once the blood demon approached him, 200 years ago, when Jian Wushuang was fighting Zidong, he lost tragically because his sword formation was invisible and didn't work for Zidong at all. He was then easily approached and defeated. Now he was approached by the blood demon. Once close, Jian Wushuang could not use the ninth heaven sword formation. His offensive power would be greatly reduced. However, these people did not know he was not what he used to be 200 years ago. Now his sword heart had reached the top of level 6, and his divine Yin Thunder had entered the second level. His body was extraordinarily strong enough to resist the blood demon even without the ninth heaven sword formation. When the blood demon appeared in front of him and held up the saber, Jian Wushuang immediately waved his Blood Mountain sword. Once the Blood Mountain sword's ultimate power was triggered, Jian Wushuang instantly performed the fourth move of the Boundless Heaven sword art. Bang! With a loud noise, a terrible roar shook the entire Black Tower. After that, Jian Wushuang staggered and dropped back several steps, but his aura remained strong and intact. He survived. How could he survive? Did he survive the blood demon's attack without the sword formation? The audiences were all stunned. In terms of attack, he had such a violent yet nimble sword formation. In defense, he could resist the blood demon from nearby. Then this battle, just as when everyone was still shocked by what they saw, Jian Wushuang suddenly snorted, and his body split into half in midair. Yes, it is split into two. Doppelganger! It is the doppelganger! Everyone was shouting under the Black Tower. Jian Wushuang, who was still in the third level, revealed his two original bodies at this moment, his eyes cold and solemn. The world body stepped back toward the edge, and the slaughter body, with the Blood Mountain sword and a monstrous aura, directly rushed out toward the blood demon. The world body controlled the ninth heaven sword formation and attacked the blood demon in a frenzy again and again. The slaughter body performed the swordsmanship and fought with the blood demon face to face. On the battlefield, streams of violent sword light roared out one after another, accompanied by the harsh noise from the 6-meter-long scarlet longsword, which was shuttling back and forth in the air. The two are perfectly matched. Facing such an attack of two different offensives, the blood demon appeared a little confounded and kept moving backward. At this sight, the audience all stood in amazement. Is the blood demon suppressed by him? This is the blood demon in the third level, the last anchor of the Black Tower. Yet he is suppressed. Too strong. The blood mountain is too strong. His original body controls the sword formation, while the doppelganger fights. Both are terrible. The blood demon cannot withstand the attack from the two. Is the blood demon going to lose? Countless screaming rang in succession. Among the crowd, Zedong also stared at the image with wide eyes, appearing astonished. This blood mountain, his strength is beyond the eternal realm. I'm sure he is able to fight with a real Dao master right now, Zedong said in his deep voice. He did not disguise his words, so the people around him heard and were all shocked. To fight with a Dao master? In the eternal world, it is a wild wish for people in the eternal realm to confront with a Dao master fair and square. Is this the legendary seventh step? The woman beside Zedong murmured. The seventh step? The crowd was silenced at the sound of these three words. Within the eternal world, there were only 6 steps in the eternal realm. The 6 steps of the eternal realm was divided according to the 6 levels of the sword heart. The top of level 6 represented the highest level in the eternal realm. However, there was a rumor in the eternal world, saying that a 7th step existed. It was said that a long time ago, before the Tang of the Eastern Land was created, there was an extraordinary eternal realm in the eternal world. This eternal realm was able to fight with Dao Master. The entire eternal world was shocked by his strength. Just because his power was too strong to go beyond the eternal realm, someone defined him as the 7th step of the eternal realm. Only that one person had achieved the supreme 7th step during the entire history of the eternal world. In addition, 4 million years ago, the Star King, who had passed the level 3 test of Star Island and left Stellar Fog Sea, also reached the 7th step. But this Star King kept a low profile and had little fame in the eternal world. Now, the strength Jian Wushuang had revealed exceeded the 6th step and reached the 7th. This step was enough to confront ordinary Dao masters. Moreover, no one knew that Jian Wushuang was only a divine realm expert, except the Lord Spirit Sound and Ling Long. Of course, although he was a divine realm expert, he was still an inverse cultivator. He couldn't be judged based on ordinary realms. Lord Spirit Sound once said that top experts on this land had a better understanding about inverse cultivators. They regarded inverse cultivators as cultivators of a higher level. Therefore, inverse cultivators on the divine realm expert level were actually no different from normal eternal realm cultivators. Is he about to succeed? The Lord Spirit Sound had been watching the images from the mirror image all the time. Right now, her face broke into a smile. It's right. He is an inverse cultivator on the divine realm expert level, and should be regarded as an eternal realm. Besides, he has good opportunities. A supreme bloodline from the ancient god, a set of remarkable sword formation, and the secret skill of divine in thunder from the Star Island. It is natural that he could pass. The Lord Spirit Sound was not very surprised by Jian Wushuang's performance in the 3rd level, but the others were totally dumbfounded. Inside the 3rd level, Jian Wushuang's 2 original bodies cooperated with each other. The world body controlled the sword formation, while the slaughter body fought in close combat. The two were a perfect combination. Shoo! The horrific sword formation broke through the air like a bloody electric drill. Before the blood demon could ward off the formation, the sword light from the slaughter body shot toward him from the other side. The blood demon had exhausted himself, but was still completely suppressed. Being suppressed by his opponent, the blood demon grew weaker and weaker. Finally, the long sword stabbed fiercely at the blood demon, whose body exploded right away. The blood demon collapsed. He passed. The blood demon is defeated. He really passed the 3rd level. In front of the Black Tower, the crowd was shocked at the sight. Even the 5 Dao masters hiding in the dark were astonished by what they saw. After passing the 3rd level, Jian Wushuang could leave the damnable place of Stellar Fog Sea. It was the expectations of everyone on this island. In history, only the Star King left Stellar Fog Sea 4 million years ago. Today, Jian Wushuang was the 2nd person to do so. He passed. Seeing that the blood demon totally collapsed, Jian Wushuang was finally relieved. He waved his hand, and the 9th heaven sword formation immediately broke up into many blood sky swords. which were then stored in the interspatial ring. His two original bodies reunited. Blood Mountain. Out of nowhere, the Lord Spirit Sound showed up in front of Jian Wushuang. Lord Spirit Sound. Jian Wushuang looked over. It took you only 210 years to pass level 3 of this black tower. Very impressive. She sighed softly and then made a gesture. Follow me. Jian Wushuang felt an invisible force rushing toward him, and his body was no longer under control. At the same time, in front of him, a space wormhole suddenly appeared and directly drew him in. The moment he crossed into the wormhole, the space on the third level quieted down. The mirror image in front of the black tower disappeared. The crowd was still there. Everyone was praising and discussing, waiting for Jian Wushuang to walk out from the black tower. On a lake covered by endless gray fog, huge lotus leaves floated on the surface of the water. Suddenly, Jian Wushuang emerged out of thin air on top of one of the lotus leaves. He looked around. This is Star Lake, the place where I live. Lord Spirit Sound was standing before him. She continued, what I have left on the Star Island is only an incarnation. What you see now is my original body. I see. Jian Wushuang nodded slowly. Blood Mountain, you are clear of the rules on Star Island. You should know that after passing the third level of the Black Tower, you are qualified to leave the Stellar Fog Sea. Lord Spirit Sound went on. But there was something else. Something else. Jian Wushuang was confused. You can leave Stellar Fog Sea if you pass the third level. This is true. Apart from it, you're also qualified to be a disciple of the Star Bloodline, said Lord Spirit Sound. A disciple of the Star Bloodline? Jian Wushuang was surprised. Star Bloodline? What was the Star Bloodline? He had never heard of it in the Eternal World. But he could guess that the Star Bloodline must have something to do with the great expert who had created the vast Stellar Fog Sea. Blood Mountain, listen carefully. The Stellar Fog Sea was created with great means by the founder of the Star Bloodline. The purpose of its existence is to select qualified disciples for the Star Bloodline. Lord Spirit Sound narrated. There are 4 black towers on Star Island, representing 4 different levels of tests. Among these 4 levels, the levels of the Divine Realm, Eternal Realm, and Tao Master are designed to help select ordinary disciples. You just passed the Eternal Realm test, and could be accepted as an ordinary disciple of the Star Bloodline. This is your disciple token. Lord Spirit Sound handed a token to Jian Wushuang. He automatically took it over and put it on his hand. A closer look at the token with his consciousness. He discovered a vast sea of stars, boundless and bottomless, sending out a unique and frightening aura. That aura was strong enough to make Jian Wushuang's heart tremble. He swallowed hard and quickly calmed down. Then he asked, Lord Spirit Sound, you've talked so much about the Star Bloodline, but where is it exactly? Why haven't I heard about it in the Eternal World? In his eyes, the founder of the Star Bloodline, who had created the Stellar Fog Sea, must be a remarkable expert. Such a mighty person shouldn't be unknown to others. His Star Bloodline shouldn't be unheard of. The Star Bloodline is not in your realm. It's natural that you haven't heard about it, said Lord Spirit Sound. Not in this realm? Then where? Jian Wushuang was surprised. Lord Spirit Sound glanced at him and smiled. The Eternal World is huge. It's not as simple as you think. Your knowledge about it is like a drop of water in the sea. When you become a Tao Master and have a wider knowledge, you'll naturally know. Hearing this, Jian Wushuang frowned. What he knew about the Eternal World was only a fraction of it. How big was the Eternal World exactly? You don't have to know too much about the Star Bloodline. After all, you are so weak right now. You should improve your strength first. Lord Spirit Sound smiled. By the way, now that you've passed the test and become a disciple of the Star Bloodline, I'll choose 3 opportunities for you and then send you away. This is the rule set by the founder. 3 opportunities? Jian Wushuang's heart lightened. Jian Wushuang remembered that when he first came to Star Island, Lord Spirit Sound said if he passed the 3 tests of the Black Tower, he could leave Stellar Fog Sea. Besides, she would also give him some additional opportunities. Now, this must be it. 3 opportunities? He was quite expectant. The star bloodline must be very extraordinary, for the stellar fog sea was already quite unusual. The opportunities mentioned by Lord Spirit Sound must also be a heritage from the founder of this lineage. Opportunities left by that kind of experts naturally made Jian Wushuang very excited. The founder has left many treasures and opportunities in the stellar fog sea. I will choose 3 useful opportunities for you. Lord Spirit Sound looked at him and said, "Your sword formation looked marvelous. Its creator must have a very profound understanding about sword principle and formation." Yes. Jian Wushuang nodded. The 9th Heaven sword formation was co-created by Sunrise Sword Emperor and Tao Master Spirit. In the eternal world, Sunrise Sword Emperor and Tao Master Spirit were acknowledged as the greatest sword cultivator and formation master respectively. Both represented the top level in their respective fields. The formation is wonderful indeed, and you're also skilled at controlling it. But it's a pity that the magic weapons forming up the formation are of low grade, said Lord Spirit Sound. Jian Wushuang was astounded by her words. The magic weapons that form up the sword formation? The Blood Sky Sword. The 36 Blood Sky Swords were peak-level eternal weapons from the Blood Eagle Guard's treasure vault. He spent huge amount of credits for these expensive weapons, which were systematically made and identical to each other. However, such weapons were low-grade in the eyes of Lord Spirit Sound. Your sword formation will be more powerful with systematically made magic weapons. I happen to have one set which is very suitable for you. What do you think? She stretched out her hand and a magic sword weapon glowing with lavender light emerged on her palm. Jian Wushuang immediately looked at the weapon on her hand. It was 1 meter long, with a thin hilt and a sharp edge. What a fine sword! Seeing the cold radiance reflected from the edge, he knew how sharp it was without using it. Of all the magic sword weapons he had seen, only his Blood Mountain sword was sharper than this one. The Blood Sky sword was nowhere near it. Most importantly, the aura from this sword was far beyond the reach of eternal weapons. Is it an emperor weapon? A sudden thought flashed in his mind. But he soon shook his head. No. It feels totally different from an emperor weapon, although it has similar aura. This sword is 1 meter long. Hence the name 1 meter sword. Lord Spirit Sound continued. Although it is not an emperor weapon, this sword is more powerful than ordinary emperor weapons. It's a very common systematically made sword weapon in the eternal world. Many powerful sword formations in the eternal world were performed with it. On the market, a single 1 meter sword is worth 1 billion divine gems. Speaking of this, she paused and looked toward Jian Wushuang. 1 billion divine gems? He was totally stunned. An ordinary emperor weapon was only worth 4 or 500 million divine gems at the auction. However, this 1 meter sword would be sold at a much higher price of 1 billion, which was a clear evidence of its power. I saw your sword formation was made up of 36 systematically made magic weapons. So my first opportunity for you is a set of 36 1 meter swords. What do you think? Lord Spirit Sound said with a smile. Hearing this, Jian Wushuang's heart pounded violently. If a 1 meter sword was truly worth 1 billion divine gems, 36 of them would be worth 36 billion divine gems. That was an astronomical number. 36 billion. Jian Wushuang was amazed, but he suddenly frowned. Is there anything wrong? Lord Spirit Sound glanced at him. Lord Spirit Sound, here's my problem. The sword formation that I'm practicing now contains 3 levels. The number of weapons required in each level is different, 36 weapons for the first level, 72 for the second level, and 108 for the third level. I already had a perfect mastery of the first level formation. When I leave Stellar Fog Sea and reach the Eternal Realm, I'll have enough spiritual power to practice the second level. By that time, I'll need 72 swords. You also know that the sword formation's greatest power could only be unleashed with identical systematically made magic weapons. The 36 1 meter swords from you would be useless when I reach the second level. Jian Wushuang said. He spoke the truth. He had been studying the second level of 9th Heaven sword formation with some progress. But the second sword formation required too much spiritual power. He could only wait until he reached the eternal realm. Since it was not long before he could practice the second level, the 36 swords for the first level would be of little use to him. I see. The Lord Spirit Sound nodded and then smiled. I do have more 1-meter swords at hand, but since 36 of them are worth 36 billion divine gems, 72 of them, Jian Wushuang turned nervous. He did longed for a set of suitable and powerful systematically made magic weapons, which would greatly improve the strength of his sword formation. But the 1-meter sword was so expensive. He couldn't do anything if the Lord Spirit Sound didn't want to give them to him. Relax. The 1-meter swords are expensive indeed. But compared with the many treasures our founder left on the Star Island, they're nothing valuable. Since they will be useful to you, you should have them. You just said that you need 108 of them for the third-level sword formation, didn't you? Then I will give them all to you. After saying this, Lord Spirit Sound waved her hand. Suddenly, 108 swords, shining with lavender light, flew out one after another and floated in front of Jian Wushuang. Seeing the many 1-meter swords floating in front of him, Jian Wushuang was overjoyed. He put them into the interspatial ring without any hesitation. Each handle is worth 1 billion and is more powerful than an ordinary emperor weapon. 108 1-meter swords. He clasped his hands. With these swords, I don't have to worry about weapons when practicing the second and third level of the 9th heaven sword formation. Next is your second opportunity. Lord Spirit Sound spoke again. Jian Wushuang immediately looked toward her. The first opportunity was already invaluable. What could the second opportunity be? Blood Mountain, you're a divine realm expert now. After leaving Stellar Fog Sea, you'll soon reach Eternal Realm, which is not difficult for you at all. But after that, it won't be easy to become a Tao Master. Jian Wushuang nodded. He didn't worry about breaking through the Eternal Realm. After all, he met the requirements for Eternal Realm a long time ago. In his 200 years on the Star Island, based on his understanding of the World Tao and Slaughter Tao, he already had a profound comprehension of the 9 occults. If he wanted, he could directly break through with just a little preparation. Limited by the tests on the Star Island, he had been restraining his realm and delayed the breakthrough again and again. But he would definitely do it after leaving Stellar Fog Sea. However, becoming a Tao Master was not as easy as breaking through the Eternal Realm. I have some Bodhi fruits. You can take them. The Lord Spirit Sound waved her hand and showed him some white Bodhi fruits. Bodhi fruits. Jian Wushuang stared at the Bodhi fruits in her hand and detected an extremely strange aura from them. The Bodhi fruits are extraordinary treasures. Here are 5 of them. Take one for every 1,000 years and I guarantee you'll become a Tao Master within 10,000 years. The Lord Spirit Sound looked at him, wearing a cold smile. To become a Tao Master within 10,000 years? Jian Wushuang was surprised. Of course, the Bodhi fruit has many usages. It may seem a bit wasteful if you swallow it indirectly, if you can find someone to refine them into Bodhi Dan. 1 Bodhi Dan is enough to help an Eternal Realm become a Tao Master within a short time, said Lord Spirit Sound. Is the Bodhi Dan so effective? Jian Wushuang marveled. To become a Tao Master was so hard in the Eternal World. They were so rare. Even in the Tang of the East, Tao Master level experts were not very common. The birth of each Tao Master, the top expert in the Eternal World, required years of accumulation. The most important thing was to find one's own Tao way. For many years, Jian Wushuang had been meditating under the Star Jade Wall and had some idea about finding his own Tao way. But it would take a long time before truly opening up. He had some confidence in his talent and he knew his chances of breaking into the Tao Master in the future were great. But he was not sure how long it would take. Could the Bodhi Dan really help an expert to reach Tao Master within a short period of time? If news about the elixir spread out, the countless eternal realms in the Eternal World would go crazy about it. After all, a lot of top-level Eternal Realm experts dreamt of becoming Tao Masters. These 5 Bodhi fruits are the second opportunity for you. They can guarantee you the position of a Tao Master in the future. As to refining them into Bodhi Dawn, it totally depends on you. Lord Spirit Sound let out a faint smile and threw the 5 Bodhi fruits to Jian Wushuang. He took them and carefully put them into the interspatial ring. Putting away the Bodhi fruits, Jian Wushuang felt relieved. But then he suddenly asked, Lord Spirit Sound, is there a difference between Tao masters practiced with the help of Bodhi fruit and those without? Difference? Just a little. Lord Spirit Sound nodded. The function of the Bodhi fruit or Bodhidan is to help you create your own Tao way in the shortest possible time, so as to meet the minimum requirement for Tao masters. The created Tao ways vary in strength. A more powerful Tao way indicates a stronger Tao master, and vice versa. The Tao ways created with the help of the Bodhi fruit or Bodhidan are usually those weakest ones. Is that so? Jian Wushuang frowned and asked, only the weakest Tao way? He was greatly disappointed. He was ambitious and wanted to be a Tao master, but was unwilling to become just the most ordinary one. He would never choose the weakest Tao way unless he had to. Lord Spirit Sound said, I give you these treasures just in case. If you have some trouble on the way, you can still become a Tao master with the help of these Bodhi fruits. But if everything goes well, you don't have to rely on them. I understand. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly, already having his own idea. If he could become a Tao master on his own, he wouldn't use the Bodhi fruits. But if there was little hope of becoming a Tao master on his own strength, he would have to turn to these Bodhi fruits for help. Great. I had already given you 2 opportunities. It's time for the third one, which is also the most special one. Lord Spirit Sound's face turned grave. The third opportunity is invaluable, much more valuable than the previous 2 combined. Most importantly, it suits you the most. It will be of great help to you and even change your fate. Change my fate. Jian Wushuang was puzzled and grew more expectant. But I need to mention that I only give you a chance to win this fate-changing opportunity. It depends on your own ability to get it. Lord Spirit Sound said, only a chance? Jian Wushuang complained in his heart, but nodded heavily. A great opportunity that could change one's fate was not easy to obtain. But as long as it can be obtained, it would be of great benefit to him too. Jian Wushuang certainly would not give up such a good chance. Follow me. Lord Spirit Sound uttered these words and then waved again. Another space wormhole appeared before her. Without a thought, she stepped into the space wormhole directly with Jian Wushuang. On a giant island, completely covered by a thick fog, located at the farthest end of the stellar fog sea. Jian Wushuang came to this island with Lord Spirit Sound. After landing on the ground, Jian Wushuang took a look at his surroundings. However, other than the thick fog, the only things within view was scattered gravel. He was surprised to find out that all the stones and even the ground were a weird scarlet color. The ground. Jian Wushuang stamped on the scarlet ground, finding that it was very hard and smooth. He deliberately stamped harder, but the ground remained unaffected by his strength. Follow me. Lord Spirit Sound led Jian Wushuang deeper into the island. Jian Wushuang followed closely while inspecting his surroundings. He could tell that there was something unusual about this island. First of all, it was too quiet. There was no sound at all on such a huge island. After a short time, Jian Wushuang arrived in front of the only mountain on this island. This giant mountain was the same scarlet color, but it had a strange shape. Here it is, Lord Spirit Sound said. He stopped and looked up towards the weird mountain. Jian Wushuang looked at the mountain too. It appeared lifeless and had no sound. Gu King, I've brought the little guy I told you about last time, Lord Spirit Sound said. His voice echoed across the island. The huge island remained quiet for a long time. Then, a deep old voice rang out, as loud as thunder. Is that him? The sound revealed no emotions at all and came from all directions. Jian Wushuang looked around immediately, but he couldn't tell where exactly the sound came from. Is it from the ground? Jian Wushuang looked at the scarlet ground. A divine realm expert? The deep old voice echoed across the island again. Humph! How could a divine realm expert deserve what Master left? The deep old voice became angry. Immediately, Jian Wushuang felt an incredible oppression coming from everywhere. felt like it could crush his bones, and his face turned red. Seeing this, Lord Spirit Sound flicked his sleeve, and the oppression surrounding Jian Wushuang immediately disappeared. Lord Spirit Sound said, "Gu King, although this little guy is only a divine realm expert, he's an inverse cultivator. He just arrived at Star Island about 200 years ago and has already passed the 3 eternal realm tests. It's rare to have such ability. In addition, the stuff your master left has little to do with a person's realm, right? You are right, but a divine realm expert is still too weak. It's impossible for him to get what master left. Come again once he reaches Tao Master." "How do you know he's unable to get it without even letting him try?" Lord Spirit Sound sneered. After a short silence, the deep old voice spoke again. "Little guy, what's your name?" "Blood Mountain, sir," Jian Wushuang answered. "My master did leave a valuable treasure here, but it's not easy to acquire. I don't believe there's any chance for a divine realm expert to succeed. If you still insist on trying, although it won't kill you, it may cause serious injuries that will need a very long time to recover from." The deep old voice stopped for a while, then continued, "Now, let me ask you again. Do you want to try?" "Of course." Jian Wushuang nodded without a second thought. It was such a big opportunity. Who knew if there would be another chance if he missed this one? Not to mention serious injuries, even if he might die, he would still want to give it a try. "Okay, as you wish." The entire island became silent again after these words. "Are we starting now?" Lord Spirit Sound looked at the Scarlet Mountain, smiled, then said, "Blood Mountain, pay close attention to what happens next." Jian Wushuang was stunned but nodded subconsciously. Boom boom pow. At this moment, the entire island started to shake madly. "What's going on?" Jian Wushuang frowned, then looked at Lord Spirit Sound and realized that she was already floating. She obviously knew the island would begin shaking. Jian Wushuang began to float as well while looking around in confusion. Suddenly, with a loud buzzing, the peak of the giant Scarlet Mountain began to split, revealing 2 weird suns that were both a dark gold color. This is... With both eyes opened widely, Jian Wushuang stared at the 2 suns, while feeling as if his head was about to explode. Suns? What suns? They were obviously 2 giant dark gold eyes. Yes, they were 2 eyes, and their size was comparable to 2 small mountains. Each eye was several times bigger than the gold-armored ancient god that Jian Wushuang had turned into. While still at the peak of the mountain, the eyes suddenly opened and focused directly on Jian Wushuang. Meanwhile, Jian Wushuang realized that the scarlet ground he was previously standing on was wriggling madly. It was wriggling. The entire island was wriggling. Next, many huge scarlet tentacles emerged from the wriggling ground. Jian Wushuang and Lord Spirit Sound were in the sky above the island, watching as this all took place. He could clearly see that the entire giant island beneath him had become alive. Numerous tentacles were reaching out from every part of the island as the ground slowly split open, revealing its true form. Jian Wushuang was stunned upon seeing the island's true form. Island? This was not an island. It was a giant worm that had been curled up. Yes, the Scarlet Island he saw before was just the outer shell of this giant worm. How could it be? When he saw this, even Jian Wushuang felt a hint of fear. It was enormous and boundless, with scarlet scales, surrounded by numerous savage tendrils, covering its body. A simple glance revealed countless hundreds of tendrils, thickly dotted across its body. There was a huge maroon head at the top of that scarlet body, which was also fully covered with tendrils. Also, there was no nose on its face, just a pair of humongous eyes and a wide-opened bloody mouth. There were also 2 tendrils beside its mouth. It was fiendish, scary, and horrifying. It gave off a frightening atmosphere which seemed to cast a shadow over everything in its surroundings. However, the most blood-curdling was its size. It was just way too humongous. Jian Wushuang had seen some huge exotic beasts before, but compared to this enormous scarlet worm beast, even the biggest one was a joke. They wouldn't even be qualified to be called small. It was just like comparing ants to an elephant. The humongous island they had been standing on before was actually its coiled-up body. Is this really the island we were just standing on? Jian Wushuang's heart was trembling. Before this, he had walked a good distance on the island and noticed that the island seemed unusual. But to his great surprise, this island was actually a living creature and a huge horrifying worm beast at that. Jian Wushuang was secretly amazed. However, his expression changed suddenly. This is... His eyes were filled with astonishment. He stared at the huge worm beast in front of him carefully. This beast, he sensed something familiar about it, like he had met it before. Jian Wushuang tried to recall where he had sensed this before. In no time, he realized the worm beast's identity. The ancient god clan. Jian Wushuang suddenly opened his eyes. Now he remembered. When he landed in the ancient god clan, he was badly wounded. At that time, ancient god of the ancient god clan, along with Elder Ing, used a savage scarlet worm beast to cure him. Jian Wushuang even assimilated the essence blood of the worm beast. The worm beast's essence blood seemed extremely precious. However, the worm beast that was used to cure him, when compared to this one, putting aside size and number of tendrils, was exactly the same in every other aspect. I am Gu King. An ancient and heavy sound was heard as enormous scarlet worm beast looked at Jian Wushuang with its humongous and round eyes. I am a plenilune centipede from the ancient god clan. My lord is the 8-star imperial god of the ancient god clan, King Luozhen. The ancient and heavy sound reverberated throughout the area surrounding Jian Wushuang, which greatly shocked him. The 8-star imperial god? Jian Wushuang's eyes widened. The hierarchy of the ancient god clan was decided by the number of angles in the star on their chests. So, the 1-star ancient god was the weakest, similar to a human divine realm expert, while the 2-star ancient god was equivalent to the eternal realm. And the 3-star ancient god in the ancient god clan, as he knew, was at the same level as the Tao Master in human. 3 stars was enough to rival human Tao Master. Yet this one, the Master of Gu King, was an 8-star ancient god? 8 stars? What level would he reach according to the standards of human cultivators? Moreover, he is an ancient god of imperial bloodline. How powerful would he be? Blood Mountain. I sense the bloodline of the ancient god clan inside your body, and the purity of it is extremely high. You also possess the imperial bloodline. Besides that, you are quite gifted since you managed to pass the 3 tests of Star Island and become the disciple of the lineage of stars. So, I will give you a chance to acquire my master's most valuable treasure. After say that, Gu King lowered its mutant-sized head and opened its bloody mouth. At that moment, Jian Wushuang looked deep inside its bloody mouth, where he saw a dark golden light. What's that? Jian Wushuang glanced at that dark golden light, but there was not enough time for him to understand what it was. Gu King's bloody mouth drew near and seemed as if it was trying to devour Jian Wushuang. Before Jian Wushuang could react, Gu King swallowed him in one gulp. Lord Spirit Sound watched all this happen, from the beginning to the end, without interfering. Quite the opposite, he was standing there with a curious smile on his face. After being swallowed by Gu King, Jian Wushuang was confused for a second. He didn't understand what had happened at first, and by the time it dawned on him, he was already inside a grandiose scarlet palace. This scarlet palace was also tremendous, with enough space to accommodate thousands of people. However, Jian Wushuang knew that this palace existed inside Gu King's stomach. At this point, Jian Wushuang finally understood what the dark golden light which attracted him was. There was a drop of dark golden essence blood suspended above the scarlet palace. Yes, a drop of essence blood. This drop was exceptionally pure and contained incredible power. It only took Jian Wushuang one look to be completely enthralled by it. At the same time, the ancient god bloodline inside him began to seethe subconsciously. It began to seethe dramatically and even started to boil. His light in his eyes even began to burn with a subconscious desire. It was the first time Jian Wushuang had such peculiar feelings since he assimilated the ancient god bloodline. Although this feeling was weird, he was still able to remain calm in the deepest place of his heart. Is this drop of essence blood the most valuable treasure which that 8-star imperial god left? Jian Wushuang whispered. Blood Mountain. The voice of the Gu King arose directly in the palace. What you are looking at is the inheritance essence blood which was condensed by my master before his death. This drop of blood contains my master's bloodline and power. If someone from the ancient god clan manages to refine this drop of essence blood and slowly absorb its energy over time, they could eventually come to possess the imperial bloodline of the ancient god. As for the power, although they would not be able to completely inherit my master's strength, which was at the 8-star ancient god level, he could still, at the very least, reach the level of 5 or even 6 stars. And this increase in power will not have any side effects. After the master's essence blood is completely absorbed, they can still rely on their own ability and continue to improve their strength. Of course, the prerequisite for achieving this is that they must be able to refine this drop of essence blood. Essence blood. Of inheritance. Staring at the drop of dark golden essence blood floating above the palace, his eyes shone brightly. He had the bloodline of the ancient god clan. For him, this drop of essence blood of inheritance from the 8-star imperial god was akin to a great fortune. Which king? I'm curious as to how can I refine this drop of essence blood? Jian Wushuang asked. All you need to do is to go up there and start to refine. But in the process you'll be met by an obstacle hindrance. As to what that obstacle may be, you'll find out when the time comes. Which king's voice rang in the Scarlet Palace. Remember, you only have one chance to refine it. If you fail, don't try again but just leave. Got it. Jian Wushuang nodded. Then he flew directly towards the drop of dark gold essence blood. Soon Jian Wushuang approached that drop of dark gold essence blood. Jian Wushuang fixed his eyes on the drop of essence blood fervently, burning with excitement. Then he reached out a large hand and tried to grab the drop of essence blood. But the moment he touched it, he triggered an invisible attack. Jian Wushuang shuddered. This is a consciousness attack? Jian Wushuang looked surprised. He himself was good at launching consciousness attacks. Therefore, he was quite familiar with such attacks. Is this the obstacle I must overcome during the refining? Jian Wushuang nodded and immediately focused on refining the drop of essence blood. As he was refining it, the consciousness attack that came from the drop of essence blood was becoming more aggressive. After around half an hour, Jian Wushuang's eyes suddenly sparkled. He opened his mouth, and the drop of dark gold essence blood instantly shrank and fluttered inside his body. I made it! Jian Wushuang was thrilled. How is this possible? An old but vigorous voice rang out throughout the whole Scarlet. Which king's voice obviously revealed a note of incredulity. The consciousness attack in Master's essence blood is incredibly powerful. How could this kid fight off this consciousness attack without any effort? This is impossible. The Witch King found it quite astonishing that Jian Wushuang refined the essence blood left by his master so easily. It was indeed easy for Jian Wushuang. During the process of refining, Jian Wushuang did not meet much resistance at all. And he succeeded in just half an hour. As confusing as this may have been, the fact remained that Jian Wushuang had refined the drop of essence blood smoothly. Humph! As a snort sounded, the whole Scarlet Palace began to tremble. Then, the Witch King disgorged the huge Scarlet Palace from his stomach. Jian Wushuang, who was staying inside the Scarlet Palace, was spat out. Still in the stellar fog sea, looking indifferent, Lord Spirit Sound was standing in the void. Meanwhile, the unbelievably colossal body of the Witch King was floating ahead of him, and Jian Wushuang was walking out of the Scarlet Palace. Just when he stepped out, the Witch King's gold-colored eyes as bright as the sun suddenly swiveled in his direction. Blood Mountain, tell me, have you learned any secret skill that can enhance your own consciousness? The Witch King asked in a low voice. Secret skills that can enhance one's own consciousness? Jian Wushuang was stunned and shook his head softly. He had previously practiced some secret skills about consciousness attacks. But as for those that could strengthen one's own consciousness, he had not even have heard any, let alone practice it. No way! This is utterly impossible. The Witch King let out thunderous bellows. Master's essence blood contains a form of consciousness attack. Its impact varies with each individual. The higher one's phase is, the stronger the attack will be. But anyway, you're an inverse cultivator at the level of the divine realm expert, which equals to a normal eternal realm expert. Thus, the impact of this consciousness attack on you must also be quite hard to bear. Even a real Tao master might not be able to fend it off. But you not only fended it off but managed to do so with little effort. It was as though the consciousness attack didn't influence you at all. Since you did that, your consciousness shall be unusually strong, or even more powerful than most of the Tao masters. You're merely a divine realm expert. If you never practiced that kind of secret skills, how has your consciousness become so strong? You must have learned some secret skills before. Think harder. The Witch King's voice was very tense. The Witch King had seen the world when he followed his master, an 8-star imperial god, on expeditions in a variety of places. Based on his experience, he was sure that Jian Wushuang must have practiced some form of unique secret skill that reinforced his own consciousness. Otherwise, Jian Wushuang would not have been able to refine the essence blood left by his master so easily. When Jian Wushuang heard the words of the Witch King, he could not resist scowling. Some secret skill that can enhance one's own consciousness? It was true that he never practiced any. But the Witch King was so certain about this. Could it be? A possible explanation dawned on Jian Wushuang. The universal Tao scripture. Jian Wushuang yelled, abruptly clapping his hands. When Jian Wushuang joined his master Xianxia and became his personal disciple, Palace Master Xianxia personally handed him the universal Tao scripture. At that time, Xianxia did not describe what specific use this universal Tao scripture had. He only told him that the universal Tao scripture was highly unique and could be quite helpful in the future. Jian Wushuang was also bemused about this scripture. When he was in the ancient god clan and treated like a clansman of the ancient god clan, he had suspected that the universal Tao scripture had changed the aura of his soul. But during the meeting with Xianxia later, this speculation was denied. However, now, could it be that what the universal Tao scripture has changed is not the aura of my soul but my consciousness? Jian Wushuang mumbled to himself. Of course, this was just a guess. He could not be certain. Taking a deep breath, Jian Wushuang opened his mouth and said, Witch King, my senior, I did learn a very special secret skill, but I have no idea what effect that secret skill has. All I know is that it is a very unusual secret skill. Well, that must be it. The Witch King nodded with assurance. You, as a divine realm expert, have not lived in this world for a very long time, right? Even if you've been through a great amount of training and survived great hardships, your consciousness would not be that strong. So, you surely have practiced some secret skill to enhance your consciousness. And this kind of secret skills that help one improve his consciousness is rather rare throughout the world. So the one you practice is naturally out of the ordinary. Is it? Jian Wushuang nodded. To verify this, he would have to send a message to his master after he got out of the stellar fog sea. Well, no matter what, you've refined the essence blood of my master. From now on, you are the successor of my master. The Witch King announced in a booming voice, as though these words were beyond question. Then he cast his eyes on Jian Wushuang once again. Blood Mountain. Give 1 drop of your ancient god essence blood, the Witch King requested. My ancient god essence blood? Jian Wushuang nodded. Each ancient god had his own essence blood, and so did Jian Wushuang. Although he did not know what the Witch King would do with his essence blood, he extracted a single drop and handed it over to the Witch King without hesitation. Once he obtained the ancient god essence blood of Jian Wushuang, the Witch King shot a curious look at Jian Wushuang with his enormous eyes. Then, myriads of mysterious cracks started to appear on the Witch King's gigantic body. Each of those cracks was unfathomable to Jian Wushuang. The mysterious cracks covered the Witch King's body. Then, the Witch King opened his mouth and swallowed down the drop of Jian Wushuang's ancient god essence blood. Kid, brace yourself, the Witch King shouted. As these words faded, his large body with a huge hideous head on the top dashed towards Jian Wushuang. Without giving Jian Wushuang any time to react, it crashed into Jian Wushuang. However, to Jian Wushuang's shock, when the Witch King's body collided with his, he did not feel any impact. Instead, the Witch King's body actually entered into his. This. Jian Wushuang felt his brain was jammed. He stared at the scene, totally at a loss. There was nothing he could do but watch the Witch King's huge body pour into his. Soon, the Witch King's island-sized body had completely vanished out of sight. At the same time, a mysterious scarlet crack, one that looked quite complex, emerged on Jian Wushuang's right arm. Blood Mountain. A vigorous voice sounded from Jian Wushuang's insides. Senior Witch King, what are you doing? Jian Wushuang was utterly astonished. From this day on, you're my new master. There's no need to call me senior any longer. Just Witch King. The Witch King said. His tone appeared to be friendlier. New master? What's going on? Jian Wushuang still did not fully understand what was happening. As I told you before, I am Plenilune Centipede. Plenilune is the name of my population. The Witch King began to explain the situation. The clan I belong to is called the Plenilune clan. Human cultivators also address the Plenilune as Plenilune Worm Beast. The Plenilune is born with an ancient god and relies on the ancient god's blood to survive and grow. You can perceive the Plenilune as a kind of parasitic beast. Anyway, the Plenilune clan is destined to serve the ancient god clan since they were born. For the ancient god clan, the Plenilune clan is their close ally. Hearing this, Jian Wushuang was taken aback. It had occurred to him that when he was staying in the ancient god clan, he saw many ancient gods carrying worm beasts just like the Witch King, but they were much smaller. Those ancient gods all treated the worm beasts as their brothers. Since I was born, I've been around my Master King Luozhen and lived on his blood. As Master's strength kept going up, I grew stronger and stronger. When Master became the top 8-star ancient god, I also became the Plenilune Centipede in the prime of my life. But later, Master met his downfall. I escaped with his essence blood of inheritance and tried to find a suitable successor for him. However, given that I lost the ancient god that I relied on, I could not survive for long, so I came to the Stellar Fog Sea. The Stellar Fog Sea was created by the founder of the lineage of stars. With the magic means he left here, I managed to scrape a living. But I can only exist in the form of an island and cannot move. The slightest of moves will shorten my lifespan. I have remained here and waited for a long time. Finally, you, a man with the bloodline of the ancient god clan, came to me, but you're merely a divine realm expert. Merely a divine realm expert. I never thought you could refine Master's essence blood. Master's essence blood was in my stomach. To give you an opportunity to refine it, I would have to make a significant move which would dent my lifespan. Thus, I attempted to persuade you to give up. But to my surprise, your consciousness is so powerful that you actually made it. Speaking of this, the Witch King also sounded a bit thrilled. Now, you've refined Master's essence blood of inheritance, so you're the successor of my Master. And as I have accomplished all tasks left to me by my Master, the next thing I have to do is find a new ancient god to rely on and survive with his blood. You, the successor of my Master, are naturally the perfect candidate. Therefore, from now on, you're my new Master. I'll live in your body, feed on your ancient god blood. That explains it. Hearing the Witch King out, Jian Wushuang nodded and now had a general idea of the whole event. The Plenilune is a kind of parasitic beast that only feeds on the blood of an ancient god. Over the past years, the Witch King failed to find any ancient god to rely on, so he could only turn into an island and has since struggled to survive with the help of the unique features of this stellar fog sea. Now that he had become the successor of that King Luozhen, the Witch King finally completed his mission. Hence, the Witch King picked him as his new master and expected to live on his blood. Realizing all the things that had occurred, Jian Wushuang gave an unbidden wry smile. When the Witch King picked him as his new master, the Witch King did not ask for his approval. At the thought of this large worm beast living in his body from now on, Jian Wushuang could not help but feel chills climbing up his spine. Then Jian Wushuang asked the Witch King a few more questions, such as how to communicate with him. After learning everything he should know, Jian Wushuang reluctantly accepted that he had become the Witch King's master. At this point, Lord Spirit Sound, who had stood in the void nearby and watched all this quietly the whole time, approached him. Blood Mountain, congratulations. Lord Spirit Sound stared at Jian Wushuang. She had witnessed everything that had taken place. The reason that I took you here was that I hoped you could have a try since you carry the bloodline of the ancient god clan. But who knew that you really obtained the supreme treasure that the king left behind? How blessed you are. Tut. Tut. Jian Wushuang smiled. Although being recognized as the new master of the Witch King made Jian Wushuang a little overwhelmed, he had also successfully gained the essence blood of inheritance that 8-star imperial god left behind, which was indeed a great fortune. Well, I have already given you 3 opportunities. Now you may leave the stellar fog sea, Lord Spirit Sound said. At this, Jian Wushuang's brows furrowed slightly and he asked, Lord Spirit Sound, I have some friends on this star island. I wonder if I can? But before Jian Wushuang could finish his words, Lord Spirit Sound cut him off. I know what you're going to say. I'm sorry. The rule is the rule. It was established by the founder of the lineage of stars. Even I have no right to change it. Thus, if anyone on the star island wants to leave, he has to pass the 3 tests in the Black Tower and become a disciple of the lineage of stars. If he can't meet this requirement, he will be trapped on this star island forever. Lord Spirit Sound's voice sounded quite callous. When he heard Lord Spirit Sound, Jian Wushuang couldn't stop his expression from changing. After all, he did have a few friends on Star Island, like Ling Long, who had entered the stellar fog sea with him and had even been through some life and death situations with him. Then, there were also Chen Yu and Zidong. He had a good relationship with Chen Yu, while Zidong had sparred with him many times and even helped him out over the years. If possible, he wanted to bring these 3 out with him when he left the island. But, of course, the rules of Star Island were not that easy to break. If you want to bring them with you, there is a way. However, it will be quite difficult for you. Lord Spirit Sound suddenly said and smiled. Are you referring to the 4th Black Tower? Jian Wushuang asked. There were actually 4 Black Towers on Star Island. The first 3 Black Towers were there to test Divine Realm experts, Eternal Realm experts, and Tao Masters, but the 4th Tower had always been a mystery. However, there was a rumor on Star Island that whoever conquered the 4th Tower would be able to control the stellar fog sea. Regarding the rumor on Star Island about the 4th Black Tower, it is not exactly wrong. That tower is about the final test on Star Island, replied Lord Spirit Sound before continuing. I mentioned to you before that passing the first 3 towers means you can become an ordinary disciple of Star Bloodline, but that only means to be an ordinary disciple. However, the 4th Black Tower, the person who founded the Star Bloodline set the rules that anyone who can pass the test in the 4th Tower can become a true disciple of Star Palace and will be able to enter it. Meanwhile, that person will also gain control of the entire stellar fog sea, which also means he will gain control of Star Island. If you successfully pass the 4th Black Tower and become a true disciple of Star Palace, whether or not the people on Star Island can stay or go will be completely up to you. I see. Jian Wushuang nodded and then asked, what realm was the 4th Tower created to test? Well, it definitely has a very high requirement, much higher than your current level, so you still have a long way to go before your cultivation reaches that point. In the future, once your strength has improved enough, Gu King will let you know, Lord Spirit Sound said with a laugh. I still have a long way to go? Jian Wushuang sighed helplessly. After all, he was still quite young. He had cultivated for less than 1,000 years, so it was already incredible for him to have reached his current level. As for the strength required to defeat the 4th Tower, he was not there yet. But that didn't mean he wouldn't be strong enough in the future. Oh, there is one other thing. Jian Wushuang looked at Lord Spirit Sound and continued. When I entered the stellar fog sea 200 years ago, there were 4 of us. Shui Jin died and Ling Long entered Star Island with me. But I never did find out what happened to Zhou Zue. Do you, Lord Spirit Sounds, possibly know his whereabouts? The other person who came with you? Lord Spirit Sound frowned and shook his head. I am in charge of Star Island, But I have no control over what happens in the stellar fog sea, so I don't know where Josue is now, the person who came with you. However, since it's been over 200 years now and he has not entered Star Island, it's highly likely that he is already dead. He is dead. Jian Wushuang frowned while sighing to himself. In the beginning, he had entered the stellar fog sea along with Josue, Linglong and Shui Jin, but only he and Linglong had survived. Moreover, Linglong was not strong enough to pass the test of the Black Tower, so it would be a very long time before she was able to leave. She could even be trapped here for the rest of her life. Jian Wushuang was the only one with enough talent and luck to be able to leave. Among the four, he was the luckiest. Do you have any other questions? Lord Spirit Sound asked, with his hands behind his back and a patient expression on his face. There is nothing else. But before I leave, I want to go back to Star Island and tie up a few loose ends. Is that okay? Jian Wushuang asked. That is fine. Lord Spirit Sound nodded slightly. However, whether you are on Star Island and in the stellar fog sea or not, you cannot reveal any information regarding the Star Bloodline or Star Island to anyone, no matter who they are. I will place a strong restriction on your body. If you tell anyone, the restriction will activate. Unless someone stronger than me steps in, you will definitely die. After that, Lord Spirit Sound flicked his wrist and Jian Wushuang was instantly surrounded by a red light. When facing Lord Spirit Sound, Jian Wushuang was completely unable to fight back, so he could only accept it as the red light entered his body. A restriction? He could not help but smile bitterly. Before entering the stellar fog sea, there had already been a restriction placed on him by Emperor Lung. Now, while leaving the stellar fog sea, another restriction was being placed on him. Okay, you can go. Lord Spirit Sound made a simple motion. Then, in front of Jian Wushuang, a wormhole appeared out of thin air. Jian Wushuang stepped into the wormhole and immediately returned to Star Island. Back on Star Island, Jian Wushuang had passed the third Black Tower test in front of everyone. When news of this spread, everyone on Star Island was completely shocked. Everyone on the island was very excited. After all, the stellar fog sea had been around for a long time, and only one person had ever left alive to date. The odds of leaving here were just too low. Because the odds were so low, the people on Star Island didn't see any hope for the future. Maybe they were already very desperate. But now that Jian Wushuang was preparing to leave, the hope that was buried deep in their hearts had been rekindled. If Blood Mountain can pass through the third tower, why can't I? Almost everyone had this train of thought. In front of the Black Tower stood a crowd of people who were waiting for Jian Wushuang to reappear. But even after such a long time, he still had not come out. Everyone understood that he had probably left with Lord Spirit Sound and possibly even exited the stellar fog sea already, so these people could only slowly disperse. Inside Jian Wushuang's courtyard on Star Island, everyone who had an excellent relationship with Jian Wushuang was gathered here. Linglong, Zidong, and Chen Yu were all gathered here, with Jian Wushuang sitting in the middle. Blood Mountain, congratulations. Zidong stared at him with a burning look in his eyes that was very deep, yet possessed a hint of envy. Before the arrival of Jian Wushuang, he had been the person who was the closest to passing the third test. No one expected Jian Wushuang, who had only arrived recently, would only need 200 years to completely surpass him. Not only that, he even took the lead and passed the third tower. By the way, since you have passed the third level of the Black Tower, you can now leave the stellar fog sea, right? Zidong looked at Jian Wushuang. Yes, that's true. But I am the only one who can leave. Jian Wushuang said with a faint nod. I asked Lord Spirit Sound if I can take you guys with me, but the answer was no. Zidong, Chen Yu and Linglong looked at each other without speaking. They were not surprised to hear this result. I really envy you, Chen Yu praised. You are the most talented among us. After you is Zidong. He has passed the second level and may have a chance to leave in the future. But as for me and Linglong, maybe we will be stuck here forever. On hearing this, Linglong expressed a bitter smile. No, you won't be kept here forever. I've asked Lord Spirit Sound, and he told me that if someone is able to pass the task of the fourth Black Tower, he will be the master of the stellar fog sea. Then you will have the chance to leave, said Jian Wushuang seriously. I will do everything I can to improve my strength once I leave the stellar fog sea. I promise I will come back if it's possible, and then I will pass the task of the fourth black tower to get you out. Aha! I'm so happy to hear that. Chen Yu grinned. Blood Mountain, we will depend on you now, Zidong said with a smile. I trust you. Ling Long took a solemn look at Jian Wushuang. Well, I'm about to leave the Star Island soon, but first we should get a have-drink together. Jian Wushuang laughed and said. Zidong and the other three also made their own toasts. Jian Wushuang stood up after just one shot. Zidong, you know that Chen Yu and Ling Long are not so strong. You should take care of them in the Star Island from now on. You can count on me. Zidong nodded. My three friends take care. Jian Wushuang left after saying these words. But of course Jian Wushuang didn't leave immediately. Instead he made his way to a castle made of black stone on the edge of the island. The master of this castle is one of the 5 Dao Masters of the Star Island, Dao Master Kong Ming. Jian Wushuang stood in front of the Blackstone Castle. He then bowed slightly to the castle and then his loud voice rang out. Dao Master Kong Ming, Blood Mountain is here to pay you a visit. Enter, said a voice from inside the castle. Jian Wushuang rushed into the castle and arrived at the garden. He then saw a middle-aged man with mustache in a cyan long gown, carefully tending the flowers. The middle-aged man stopped what he was doing when Jian Wushuang entered. He turned his head slowly to look at Jian Wushuang. Blood Mountain, you have passed the 3rd level of the Black Tower, and you are able to leave Star Island. So tell me, what is your purpose here? Dao Master Kong Ming said in a calm voice. Elegant aura spread out from him as he spoke. I come here to ask you a favor, Jian Wushuang said. Yes, asked the Dao Master Kong Ming. To be honest with you, I came to the Stellar Fog Sea for only one reason, and that is the Yin-Yang Dragon Phoenix fruit. Jian Wushuang openly expressed his intentions. The eyes of the Dao Master Kong Ming narrowed when he heard Yin-Yang Dragon Phoenix fruit. His gaze fixed on Jian Wushuang. Dao Master Kong Ming, I'm aware that you have a Yin-Yang Dragon Phoenix fruit in possession. 50,000 years ago, you were being hunted by someone and had to flee into Stellar Fog Sea when you saw no other option. And now with the Yin-Yang Dragon Phoenix fruit still in your possession, I was hoping that you could do me a favor, and I, Blood Mountain, will always remember that you did me this favor. Jian Wushuang said in a serious tone. Remember this favor? Dao Master Kong Ming uttered a snorting laugh. Blood Mountain, how dare you treat me like a fool? I'm now trapped in the Star Island. What's the use of your favor when I hardly have any chance of leaving? Moreover, the Yin-Yang Dragon Phoenix fruit is of great value and is quite meaningful to me. If it weren't for the fruit, I wouldn't have been hunted and never would have fled to the Stellar Fog Sea. 50,000 years ago, I chose to come to the Stellar Fog Sea rather than hand over the Yin-Yang Dragon Phoenix fruit. And now, you want to trade this Yin-Yang Dragon Phoenix fruit with your worthless favor? How naive of you. Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes after hearing this. He had no idea that the Dao Master Kong Ming had been hunted because of a Yin-Yang Dragon Phoenix fruit. Dao Master Kong Ming, that Yin-Yang Dragon Phoenix fruit is useless to you now since you are trapped in the Star Island. But to me, it is of huge value. Besides, I believe that my favor might be of use to you. Lord Spirit Sound told me that if anyone can pass the task of the 4th Black Tower, then he can take control of the Stellar Fog Sea, which means he can control the lives of everyone within. And this 4th Black Tower, as long as I have the ability, I will do my best to pass. The 4th Black Tower, you say? Dao Master Kong Ming glanced at Jian Wushuang with surprise, and then snarled. Not even the Dao Masters have the ability to do so. What makes you think you can pass such a challenge? I have no assurance of success. Jian Wushuang said truthfully. The 4th Black Tower is indeed currently beyond my ability, and it is true I have no faith passing. Nevertheless, I still have the potential for success. It may seem quite unlikely, but there is hope. The Yin-Yang Dragon Phoenix fruit cannot help you in any way right now. So why not exchange it for the only chance of leaving the Star Island? I believe that you, Dao Master Kong Ming, will make the right choice. Jian Wushuang said with sincerity. He had no choice, for the fruit was in the hands of the Tao Master Kong Ming. And though Kong Ming is a Tao Master expert, he could not pass the first level of the Black Tower. However, he had spent 50,000 years in the Star Island, and had cultivated a very powerful secret skill, not to mention his own ability. It is true his strength was way above that of Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang needed to remain polite. He must try to convince the Tao Master Kong Ming to give him Yinyang Dragon Phoenix fruit willingly. Tao Master Kong Ming narrowed his eyes a little when Jian Wushuang finished his speech, and he succumbed to deep thought. It didn't take long for Tao Master Kong Ming to make up his mind. He looked up at Jian Wushuang again, with a smile on his face. You do have amazing talents. In the long history of Star Island, only 2 people have managed to leave. You are one of the 2 people, the other one is Star King from 4 million years ago. Being able to leave the stellar fog sea alive, you 2 are true exceptional genius. And you may even be stronger than Star King in terms of talent.